Chapter 1805. Their auras were extremely terrifying. Many experts had strange shape. Apparently, they were experts born from some powerful ancient races in the void. After waiting for a while, another terrifying phenomenon appeared in each of the other three directions. Amidst the surging brilliance, a dozen streams of light flew over from each of the phenomena. Soon, they arrived at the vicinity of the ancient void cave. The experts of the Shatter Heavenly Region, Gantian Demon Region, and Wasteland Heavenly Region rushed over almost at the same time. In the narrow space, dozens of extremely terrifying auras were stuffed into it. The void was like visible waves, chaotic collisions and fluctuations. It was abnormally terrifying. Standing behind the Pangu Saint Emperor, Qin Feng felt that dozens auras were on par with him, or even stronger than him. He felt as if his chest had been hit hard, as if he was about to suffocate. His body unconsciously took a few steps back. At the same time, among the dozens of people, there were a few who were the same as him, involuntarily retreating. But most of their auras didn't move. For example, Xiantian, Taiqing, Yuqing, Dafeng, and several other terrifying existences emitting strange auras. They were like reefs on the sea, firmly holding back the surging auras. The most terrifying one was the Pangu Saint Emperor in front of the dozens of people. He stood at the forefront of the dozens of auras. Qin Feng found that even the corner of his clothes didn't move. Are the lords of the four regions so powerful? Qin Feng felt a moment of heaviness in his heart. The gap between him and the lords of the four regions was greater than he had imagined. Then, Qin Feng's expression changed slightly. He saw the aura of the Pangu Saint Emperor in the center suddenly increase by more than 10 times. It was as if there were countless torrents, worlds, and gods forming above his head, turning into an earth-shattering brilliance. Boom! It flew over and rushed toward the dozens of experts. In the void, the Gantian Demon Lord, who was flying at the forefront, had a slight change in expression. He felt the terrifying aura, and a terrifying vision appeared around him. His body surged with a solid black light, mysterious and terrifying. The runes of the Demon Tao civilization appeared, shining with endless mysteries, as if they were compatible with some kind of great Tao in countless worlds. It was a power born from any expert that could be called a demon in the countless world. The Gantian Mountain Monster Lord had just touched it. If one day he was able to use this terrifying power, then he would have the right to be called a Saint Ancestor. The sacred ancestor of demonic beasts was one of the origins of countless demonic beasts in the boundless void. It was a great power that could sweep through countless worlds and become invincible. This was the ultimate trump card of an eternal forefather. A magnificent light burst out and swept across the sky toward the power of the Pangu Saint Emperor. Not only the Gantian Mountain Monster Lord, but the Man Wang Saint Emperor and the Destruction Army Lord also roared in the air. It was like billions of gods and demons were roaring. 2 majestic lights exploded from the 2 super region lords. Bang bang bang! A terrifying explosion erupted in the narrow space. Heaven and earth shook. This was a clash of auras. The 4 domain lords were all existences who had created a huge civilization. Each of them had great boldness, great ambition, and great power. However, the ending was shocking. The Gantian Mountain Monster Lord, Man Wang Saint Emperor, and the Destruction Army Lord joined forces and attacked the surging aura of the Pangu Saint Emperor. They were evenly matched, and no one was able to suppress the other. Such an outcome was shocking. The Gantian Mountain Monster Lord, Man Wang Saint Emperor, and the Destruction Army Lord were all shocked. The 3 of them knew that the Pangu Saint Emperor was the head of the 4 domain lords, but even with the 3 of them joining forces, they were only evenly matched with him. The Pangu Saint Emperor was simply too terrifying. Long time no see. I don't know when the 3 of you got so close. This time, you really gave me a huge surprise. The Pangu Saint Emperor raised his head, his face was calm. Your Majesty Pangu must be joking. Did your Majesty forget that the four of us have always been in an alliance? The Gantian mountain monster lord landed in the air, smiling. His gaze swept behind the Pangu Saint Emperor and instantly landed on Qin Feng. An extremely dangerous light appeared in his blood-red eyes. Qin Feng suddenly felt a chill run down his spine, as if he was being stared at by a ferocious beast. Okay, Gantian, don't be so long-winded. We are here to send them into the ancient void cave, not to fight. Man Wang Saint Emperor frowned. On the side, the Destruction Army Lord's expression was cold. There were dozens of experts under him who landed behind him. Many of them saw several figures with extremely weird auras. No rush, no rush. The Gantian mountain monster lord suddenly waved his hand, his dark gaze landing on Qin Feng. Qin Feng suddenly felt a little uneasy. A very bad feeling suddenly appeared in his heart. Man Wang Saint Emperor's brows rose, but he immediately noticed the Gantian mountain monster lord's vicious gaze. His gaze landed on a young expert behind the Pangu Saint Emperor. This young man offended Gantian Mountain? Man Wang Saint Emperor looked at Qin Feng in shock. The Pangu Saint Emperor also noticed the Gantian mountain monster lord's gaze. His heart jumped. Just at that moment, the Gantian mountain monster lord suddenly walked over. Your Majesty Pangu, can I discuss something with you? The Pangu Saint Emperor looked expressionlessly at the Gantian mountain monster lord and said, Please speak. Can I ask you for a favor? His red tongue licked his dry lips. The Gantian mountain monster lord's blood-red eyes were cold as he stared at Qin Feng. The pressure on Qin Feng's heart got stronger and stronger. Qin Feng felt a chill in his heart. Favor? The Pangu Saint Emperor looked at the Gantian mountain monster lord. The little fellow behind you offended me, so I want to ask you for a favor. If you hand him over to me, I will pay you 3 times the price. As he said that, the Gantian mountain monster lord's eyes landed on Qin Feng's body. His blood-red eyes were filled with viciousness, coldness, and viciousness. They couldn't wait to skin Qin Feng alive and torture him to death. This time, the Gantian mountain monster lord was really determined. He didn't believe that it wasn't too late for a gentleman to take revenge. He believed that a villain would take revenge day and night. Whoever offended him, even if he had to pay 10 times the price, he definitely wouldn't allow that ant to live and give him a chance to escape. This bastard in front of him had to die today. The viciousness in his eyes seemed to materialize. Coldly looking at the Gantian mountain monster lord, the alarm in Qin Feng's heart was extremely strong. Qin Feng didn't doubt that if it wasn't for the Pangu Saint Emperor blocking in front of him, the Gantian mountain monster lord would have charged up and swallowed him whole. Qin Feng had always heard that the Gantian mountain monster lord was vicious and would take revenge for the smallest grievance. This time he personally experienced it. He looked at the Gantian mountain monster lord with a heavy heart. The Gantian mountain monster lord's strength was really terrifying. If the Pangu Saint Emperor compromised, he would be in deep trouble. Silently, a wisp of pure purple light began to emit from his palm. Chapter 1806. The purple eternal true lightning in his hand jumped about. Qin Feng's eyes locked onto the ancient void cave in the sky. Qin Feng was already prepared. If he was really abandoned by the Pangu Saint Emperor, he had to guarantee that he would charge into the ancient void cave before the Gantian demon lord charged over. Of course, doing so meant that he would cut off all ties with the Suegu heavenly court. It was very likely that some of his disciples, and even the 3 god empresses, would be killed. This was a choice he had no choice but to make. As for giving up and waiting for death, Qin Feng never had such words in his dictionary. Not in the past, not now, and not in the future. The Pangu Saint Emperor saw the expressionless Qin Feng from the corner of his eyes. He also saw the eternal true lightning jumping about in Qin Feng's palm. It was obvious that this sky venerable didn't really trust him. The Gantian demon lord also saw the eternal true lightning in Qin Feng's hand. His brows were vicious and his eyes were cold. The Gantian demon lord was confident that his favor was a little simple. At least at the crucial moment, it would be of great use to the Suegu heavenly court. He walked towards Qin Feng, his arm blocking in front of the Gantian demon lord like a wall. The Gantian demon lord raised his head. Pangu Saint Emperor? His eyes instantly squinted. Gantian, it's best if you keep your favor. The Suegu heavenly court hasn't fallen to the point where they need favors from others to survive. The Pangu Saint Emperor turned his head. His expression was still calm. At this moment, he didn't have the friendliness he had when facing the gods of the Suegu heavenly court. Instead, he was high up, holy and overbearing, like the king of the gods. In the air, the atmosphere instantly froze. At this moment, Qin Feng's tense nerves relaxed. Looking at the white-robed Saint Emperor, for the first time, Qin Feng felt how charming the Saint Emperor was. Maybe it is this overbearing and unreasonable protection that made the gods risk their lives for him. A thought suddenly flashed through Qin Feng's mind, but this thought was instantly suppressed at the bottom of his heart. No matter what, Qin Feng could rely on the temporary protection of others, but he would never develop any feelings of dependence. After an unknown amount of time, the Gantian demon lord stared at the Pangu Saint Emperor with a dark expression. His expression gradually relaxed and finally turned into a smile. Pangu is indeed the Pangu Saint Emperor. His sincerity is truly touching. As he spoke, he turned around and left as if nothing had happened. However, before he turned around, he glanced indifferently at Qin Feng. Qin Feng could clearly feel the rage in the Gantian mountain monster lord's eyes as well as the dark killing intent. Qin Feng knew that in the future he would have many interactions with the Gantian mountain monster lord. Unless one day he was killed or he killed the other party with his own hand. Man Wang Saint Emperor crossed his arms as he looked on calmly. His gaze was filled with interest as he watched the Gantian mountain demon lord leave. He looked at Qin Feng meaningfully. Information about the Thunder Emperor Heavenly Venerable flashed across Man Wang Saint Emperor's mind. In these countless worlds, any expert who grasped the power of the eternal realm was like thunder to the ears. Man Wang Saint Emperor's eyes flashed with a smile. If he had such an enemy who grasped the power of the eternal realm, he probably wouldn't be able to sleep either. Even if he was about to break through to the eternal realm third realm. Let's go, Pangu Saint Emperor called out. Qin Feng retracted his gaze from the Gantian mountain monster lord. Beside him, Lingbao Tianzuan patted his shoulder and smiled. Lingbao Tianzuan sympathized with Qin Feng's situation. Yuqing Tianzuan and Taiqing Tianzuan walked over, their expressions calm. When they passed by, they nodded at Qin Feng. As for the remaining celestial venerables, their gazes were cold. Yang Tian's eyes were filled with mockery. Qin Feng looked coldly at Yang Tian. On the other side, the four teams, under the arrangement of the four super-domain lords, had already begun to enter the depths of the blue ocean, which was like a white cave in the deep blue ocean. The three pure celestial venerables entered at the same time. Dafeng Tianzuan, Yuanya Tianzuan, and Yang Tian turned into streaks of light and flew into the depths of the white cave in front of Qin Feng. Go in. Pangu Saint Emperor looked at Qin Feng. Qin Feng nodded slightly and looked in the direction of the Thunder Emperor's four domains. The three god empresses and the disciples had all been arranged properly. He believed that with the protection of the ancient heavenly court, they should be safe for a long time. At least before the ancient heavenly court was destroyed, they should be safe. He turned around and looked at the ancient void cave above his head that was emitting a gentle white light. He glanced at the Gantian mountain monster lord, who was a few hundred feet away with a gloomy face. Pure purple lightning flashed and entered at the same time as several streams. Looking at everyone's gazes, the four super-domain lords left one after another. The Gantian mountain monster lord was the last to leave. Looking at the white ancient cave, the Gantian mountain monster lord's eyes were filled with eagerness. He wanted to rush up and see if he could follow that despicable ant and kill him before returning. The Gantian mountain monster lord's gaze was uncertain. However, this was a little risky. The ancient void cave had appeared in many worlds, and there were many mysterious and weird secrets inside. If he entered, there was a high chance that his efforts in the south heavenly realm would be wasted. At this moment, he was only a little bit away from the third level of the eternal realm. In less than 100 years, he might be able to break through. After hesitating for a moment, the Gantian mountain monster lord chose to give up in the end. Looking at the direction of the ancient void cave, the Gantian mountain monster lord turned into a streak of light and disappeared from the spot. The white light was emitting from the hole in the void. It was like a whirlpool that was connected to a huge cave. It was like a mountain cave that led to the outside world. Flying into the cave, Qin Feng had a very strange feeling. It was as if time didn't exist and only space existed. In the boundless void, Qin Feng had seen many strange rivers, such as the river of time, the river of fate, the river of history, and the river of life. However, he had never seen such a strange river. In the depths of the cave, through a hole, there was a huge river that flowed endlessly. It flowed from top to bottom, from one hole to the next, from left to right. It was like an undercurrent under a sealed underground pipeline. However, the strange thing was that this river didn't have the slightest sound of water or any other sound. There was also no flow of air or the flow of time. There were also no signs of any living creatures in it. The moment he landed, Qin Feng landed at the entrance of the cave. What was strange was that he did not see any of the experts who had entered the cave earlier. Chapter 1807. This river was incomparably black, like ink. But for some reason, Qin Feng kept having a feeling that his divine soul was about to sink into it. It was as if he had returned to the embrace of his mother. The river was not wide and flowed in the narrow cave. It seemed to be no more than 10 meters long. But standing at the entrance of the cave, Qin Feng felt a trace of depth that could not be suppressed. He felt as if he was an ant. If he were to be drawn into it, it would be extremely dangerous. Around the river, there seemed to be an invisible dark mist that blended into the cave walls. Seeing this, Qin Feng thought of a rumor that had been circulating in the endless void. According to the rumor, there was a river in the endless void. This river was called the Void Mother River. It was the mother river of all worlds. Every time this mother river appeared, it meant the appearance of a high-level giant world or the appearance of an immortal perfect universe. Some people respected it as the immortal Mother River. It was seen as the Mother River that was irrigated by countless worlds and endless dimensions. In the chaos, many great beings had tried to chase after it and unravel the mystery of the immortal Mother River, but they all failed. Moreover, none of them had completely disappeared and never appeared again. This was a very mysterious river. The river that was hidden deep behind the ancient void cave was most likely the legendary Void Mother River. As for whether it was true or not, Qin Feng felt that he could verify it. He glanced around. It looked extremely ordinary to the naked eye. It was an ordinary cave and an ordinary river. Qin Feng tried to scan with his divine telekinesis. Not only could divine telekinesis see further, it could also see through phenomena and see the essence. With Qin Feng's current divine telekinesis, he could completely analyze the composition of the earth yuan qi in the soil from the mountain walls. He could even trace the changes in this place over hundreds, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of years, and even the living beings that passed by. However, the result of his probing with his divine sense was shocking. Qin Feng's divine sense was like being sucked in by a suction force. It was like a noodle being sucked in. Qin Feng hurriedly cut off this connection. Otherwise, his divine telekinesis would be exhausted sooner or later, and he would die here. Qin Feng's expression was a little heavy. The characteristic of this pitch-black river was very similar to a special characteristic of the Void Mother Stream. Melting. It melted everything. Rumor had it that even the most elite powerhouses would be completely melted if their physical bodies entered the Void Mother Stream. However, Qin Feng was still unwilling to give up. After pondering for a moment, he waved his sleeve. A spiritual light floated, and a dozen or so streaks of light appeared in front of him. There were sabers, spears, axes, mirrors, pagodas, stone seals, and all kinds of divine weapons. This was a portion of the spoils of war collected from the bodies of some of the experts he had killed. Among these messy weapons, Qin Feng had left all of the good quality ones for the 3 god queens and a few of his disciples in name. Although the remaining portion was defective, it was still extraordinarily powerful. Qin Feng's gaze fell on a large axe. This was the collection of a powerful eternal being. It was a broken Khanate spirit treasure with extraordinary power. If thrown to a god of creation, it was very likely to reduce the pressure of splitting the heavens and achieving the Tao by more than 10%. This kind of thing was quite precious to many god-level experts, but to Qin Feng, it was already trash. If needed, with some effort and time, this kind of thing could be directly created thousands of times. With a flash of light, the stone axe entered the pitch-black river with a swish sound. In Qin Feng's eyes, the moment the stone axe was thrown out of the cave, he saw the stone axe suddenly melt inch by inch in a short period of time. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes. In his eyes, when the giant axe smiled, he could clearly see a touch of black on the edge of the axe. With a wave of his sleeve, treasures flew out one after another. 7 or 8 of them disappeared into the river, but before they could get close to the river, they melted silently. Not even dregs or smoke emerged. It was enough to show how dangerous it was. Qin Feng suddenly noticed that there were some slopes from the cave entrance to the Black River, and even some shallows. Deep in the shallows was the strange pitch-black river. Paying close attention to the Black River, Qin Feng noticed that the Black River was rather thick, just like the ink. There were lumps, and occasionally, there was a faint black fog on the surface of the river. Now he was sure that the faint black mist was best not to touch. Qin Feng stroked his chin, looking a little strange. When he came in just now, he was not the only one. There were dozens of people. Where did they go? They should not have accidentally fallen into the black mist and died in it. Qin Feng believed that experts who could reach the second realm of the eternal being were not fools. Such old monsters were all meticulous and would never make the mistakes that those young boys made. Qin Feng turned his head around and looked back. However, with a single glance, his expression changed. He saw that within the cave where he came from, under the white light, he could no longer see the path he came from. The way back was gone. Qin Feng frowned. With a slight movement of his divine sense, he created several clones that flew back. However, an instant later, a look of surprise appeared on Qin Feng's face. They could not find the way back at all. Through the perception transmitted by the doppelgangers, Qin Feng found that each doppelganger seemed to see countless directions, and each of them flew in an unknown direction. Even the cave entrance that led to his real body seemed to have disappeared. Instead, there were other paths that led to other caves. Qin Feng frowned. Obviously, the ancient void cave was a chaotic maze. Countless cultivators could see countless caves inside, and each of them led to the Void Mother River. The experts who had entered the ancient void cave had most likely all disappeared, because of this reason. Rumble. There were a few faint sounds of destruction. Qin Feng directly activated some of the backups in the depths of the doppelgangers, making them dissipate. In such a damned place, it was best to make the doppelgangers dissipate on their own while they could still be vaguely controlled. Qin Feng would never let the doppelgangers break free from his control and develop their own consciousness to destroy the real body. I can't find the way back. What should I do next? Qin Feng looked behind him and scratched his head. Should he continue to find the way back, or think of a way to continue exploring the surroundings of the Void Mother River? According to legend, encountering the Void Mother River meant unknown danger, but it also meant a great opportunity. The Void Mother River irrigated countless worlds. Rumor had it that many Dao weapons flowed from the Void Mother River. There were also strange void objects like the eternal spiritual light. Any one of them would be of great use. Chapter 1808. But if he knew that there was such a ferocious thing as the Void Mother River in the depths of the ancient Void Cave, Qin Feng definitely wouldn't have come in. Go back? Qin Feng looked behind him. This thought only circled in his mind once before it completely disappeared. Not to mention whether he could go back or not, the Gantian Mountain Demon Lord was about to break through to the third level of the Eternal Realm. He would face great danger if he went back, so he might as well explore first. He looked around, but there was no path. In front of him was the rolling Void Mother River, and behind him was a terrifying maze that he couldn't tell north from south. Enter the Void Mother River to explore? Don't joke. Didn't he see it before? That was a place that ate people without spitting out their bones. Don't look at it as just a short 10 meters. There might be some unknown and terrifying things inside. Qin Feng pondered for a moment. After a moment, he suddenly noticed that the slope under his feet seemed to be some distance away from the Void Mother River. There was a shallow river bank that could allow 1 or 2 people to pass through. On the river bank there was crystal clear sand and many transparent pebbles. It seemed that they were often hit by the Void Mother River, emitting a strange luster. Maybe he could follow the river forward or explore backward to find the mystery of the depths of the cave. His eyes moved slightly and his body shook. A clone appeared beside him. Same old rules, the clone still explored the path. In this place, Qin Feng felt that it was not a bad thing to be cautious. With a thought, according to Qin Feng's orders, the clone set off and flew down the slope. However, something strange happened. After the clone flew out of the range of the cave entrance and fell down the slope, it shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a moment, Qin Feng's body shook. He felt that the clone seemed to have passed through an invisible space and landed in a strange world. Yes, it was a strange world, a very huge world. It looked like there were countless continents. There were many cultivation civilizations on the continents, and many powerful auras were revealed. They were not weaker than god-level experts. At the entrance of the cave, Qin Feng's main body could clearly sense that it was a very vast world through the vision of the clone. Outside of that vast world, there seemed to be an even wider world. It's really strange. There is actually such a huge world in this ancient void cave. The expression on Qin Feng's face was abnormally surprised. Could it be the so-called inner world? As he pondered, Qin Feng recalled the structure of some worlds. In this world, there were all kinds of strange shapes. Some were in the shape of the world tree, some were in the shape of an egg, and some were in the shape of a gourd. Qin Feng recalled the strange shape of a middle-aged man. The other forms of the world had an inconceivable structure, the outer and inner worlds. On the surface there was a huge surface world, and on the inside there were countless inner worlds. For example, the primordial world could be said to be a kind of outer and inner world. On the surface there were the heaven realm, the earth realm, the mortal realm, and countless stars. On the inside there was the reincarnation underworld. However, that kind of structure was still relatively simple. The great mutated world had swallowed up too many worlds, its internal and external structure had become abnormally complex, and the Void Mother Stream had even appeared. The nourishment of the Void Mother Stream's power might have made the inner world even larger and more terrifying. In such a place full of mazes, such a discovery was undoubtedly encouraging. Qin Feng's thoughts turned, and he tried to recall his doppelganger, but he felt a huge suction force. That huge suction force firmly held onto his doppelganger, preventing his doppelganger from leaving. At the entrance of the cave, Qin Feng raised his eyebrows. There was actually such a strange power in this world. According to the doppelganger's perception, that suction force was very strong. It was like a small bug that had fallen into a web and wanted to leave, dragging the entire spider web with it. It was getting tighter and tighter. Moreover, that terrifying suction force was rapidly entangling Qin Feng's main body through the karmic connection between the doppelganger and the main body. So powerful? When this force entangled him, Qin Feng's expression changed drastically. Qin Feng tried to cut off this connection with his supreme willpower, but he found that this connection became indestructible after being entangled by this suction force. It was like the silk spat out by a spider, entangling him. Bang! 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 Qin Feng's eternal saint power flowed around his body, violently resisting this suction force. Golden brilliance burst out from his body, like a golden divine weapon clanging. Rumble! Qin Feng waved his sleeve, and a large amount of eternal true thunder bombarded above the void, as if tearing the sky apart. This strange suction force met the eternal thunder, and a large amount of it was shattered and weakened. It works! Qin Feng's eyes lit up, and instinctively, he stimulated more and more purple eternal true thunder to blast into the depths of the slope under his feet. Rumble! An earth-shattering noise came from under his feet, and the invisible spider web that bound Qin Feng became even weaker. However, the suction force was still not completely cut off, and the faint suction force began to strengthen under his feet. Countless inner world precepts began to appear like a spider web. Qin Feng was obviously aware of the seriousness of the situation. It's not that the power of the eternal true thunder is weak and can't cut off this connection, but that I can't condense the power of the eternal true thunder to the point of precision. Qin Feng sighed in his heart. He still couldn't control the eternal thunder to the point of precision. Otherwise, the situation wouldn't be so unfavorable. Maybe I can give it a try. Qin Feng's eyes flickered. The symbol of the fourth level of the Eternal Secret Tome was the control of the eternal thunder to the point of precision and concentration of power. However, he hadn't been in the third level of the Eternal Secret Tome for long, Deshang. To be honest, Qin Feng wasn't very confident. However, if he didn't cut off this connection now, it was very likely that he would be truly pulled into the depths of the inner world. Qin Feng was curious about the inner world, but he didn't want to be trapped in it. Once he entered, it was very likely that he wouldn't be able to return to the surface world. He still had so many beautiful divine empresses. He had to take a gamble. With a thought, the pure purple eternal thunder in his body was stimulated, turning into billions of thunderbolts. Under Qin Feng's control, they bombarded the invisible spider web that was forming under his feet. Bang! 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 The eternal thunder destroyed everything. Under the thunderbolts, the laws of heaven and earth collapsed. The spider web was burned into tatters by the thunderbolt. Qin Feng began to multitask. He focused on the other half of his mind and controlled the thunderbolts to attack the invisible force that was entangling him through the karma clone. Rumble! Thunderbolts blasted out under Qin Feng's control. In the past, Qin Feng was very familiar with multitasking. However, when he used the eternal true thunder, he felt that it was unusually strenuous. The power of the eternal thunder was too advanced. Qin Feng had never tried it before. Once, twice, thrice. Qin Feng stared at the thunderbolts with full concentration. Every thunderbolt had to hit a point. He didn't know how many nodes of the spider web were destroyed by the thunderbolt. Qin Feng came to a realization. Slowly, he felt as though he had turned into countless eternal thunderbolts and was integrated into it. Every time the thunderbolt struck, he didn't miss the target. Even if the spider web was moving, it was easily hit by him. It was as though he had the help of God. Rumble! A thunderbolt struck, and the invisible spider web that was entangling him broke. Qin Feng suddenly felt his body lighten. The invisible suction force had completely disappeared. It's done. Qin Feng opened his eyes. They were overjoyed. He had broken through to the 4th level of the Eternal Secret Codex during this process. However, Qin Feng suddenly realized something. He raised his head and the look in his eyes changed. Holy sh*t. He didn't know when, but countless spider webs had suddenly appeared around him, including the top of his head. At the same time, hundreds of dense invisible suction forces seemed to have suddenly appeared under his feet and pulled him down. A terrifying suction force wrapped around him and pulled him down. He didn't have any power to resist. His body shrank and disappeared in an instant. As Qin Feng was suddenly pulled down into the inner world, the countless invisible spider webs formed by the laws of heaven and earth slowly dissipated. It was as though they had never appeared. Only the ancient Void Mother stream flowed silently. Chapter 1809. A terrifying suction force pulled Qin Feng's figure. Qin Feng blasted out eternal true thunder, trying to blast away this terrifying suction force with all his strength. Qin Feng's current strength was very strong. He was an expert at the 2nd level of the Eternal Realm. Although he could not be regarded as a supreme expert, he was known as the Lord of Heaven. But he had mastered the power of the eternal true thunder. Even the eternal true thunder had to retreat in the face of this destructive force. Ordinary giant worlds would definitely be blasted apart by such a force of struggle. But this time, Qin Feng felt a deep sense of powerlessness for the first time. A terrifying pressure completely suppressed him. The power of the eternal true thunder was weakened to the extreme. But as the speed of the fall increased, Qin Feng felt that this suppressive force was getting weaker and weaker. Until, rumble! As if passing through a long passage, a meteor fell from the sky with a loud bang, and hundreds of millions of purple thunder light landed. The void trembled, causing waves of tens of thousands of miles away. This figure stood up, stepped on the void, and looked around, as if standing at the top of heaven and earth. Tens of thousands of thunder seemed to be celebrating the arrival of a supreme expert in the inner world. However, this figure's face was gloomy. Deity! Not far from the sky, a flowing light flew down and landed beside Qin Feng in an instant. He looked exactly the same as Qin Feng, and his body was also surrounded by pure purple thunder and lightning. In this slightly gray world, he was extremely conspicuous. This was really the doppelganger. He seemed to be intact and had not undergone any changes. Qin Feng glanced at this figure and snorted coldly. The doppelganger turned into a flowing light and merged back into his body. Qin Feng was silent as he looked above his head. He soared into the sky. However, he had just reached a height of 10 million feet when he felt an extremely powerful suction force from the inner world pulling his body downward. He couldn't escape. Qin Feng was unwilling to admit defeat. He rushed up again and again, but every time he reached a height of 10 million miles, he felt the suction force of the inner world converging. And once he fell, this suction force completely disappeared. After another failed attempt, Qin Feng turned into a bolt of lightning and landed on the ground with a rumble. "I can't get out." He looked up with a gloomy face. The strange suction force of this world was too strong. At most, he could go 10 million meters into the sky, and it was difficult for him to move. At the thought of not being able to get out, Qin Feng's heart suddenly had a trace of anxiety. But he quickly suppressed this anxiety. He couldn't be so reckless. Looking at the incomparably vast inner world in front of him, Qin Feng forcefully suppressed his anger and anger. His gloomy expression changed for a moment before he decided to head to the depths of this inner world to investigate. The world here was incomparably vast, and there was a very prosperous cultivation civilization. There were also traces of some existences with extremely powerful auras. There should be a way to leave the inner world. At the same time, as his attention was diverted, Qin Feng also noticed that the world here was somewhat different from the world on the surface. The outer world and the inner world. The outer world's void was dominated by all kinds of docile spirit qi of heaven and earth, which was suitable for living creatures to live in. The flowing spirit qi of heaven and earth in the inner world naturally carried all kinds of deeper power. It was not that the spirit qi of heaven and earth here was violent, but it had a gloomy feeling. If a cultivator from the outer world entered and cultivated with the outer world's cultivation method, he would probably get half the result with twice the effort. Moreover, Qin Feng found that the world here seemed to be larger than the outer world, and it also had great power. His eternal true thunder was enough to easily destroy a divine realm in the outer world. It could even tear apart a huge heavenly realm, and it could easily destroy spacetime. However, when hundreds of millions of thunderbolts fell, it only destroyed the void here for dozens of miles. Moreover, in an extremely short period of time, these dozens of miles of void immediately recovered. This terrifying recovery ability of the void was simply comparable to the legendary immortal and perfect universe. A single leaf signifies the fall of autumn. This was enough to explain many things. The world here was probably much more terrifying than the outer world. Thinking like this, Qin Feng looked above the void. The void of the inner world was vast. Qin Feng was unfamiliar with this place. Sensing slightly, Qin Feng looked into the distance. In that direction, there was a faint aura of a powerhouse above the void, like a candle. Moreover, the aura of a powerhouse was not in the minority. The aura of divine power was very obvious. That was obviously a place of civilization. Where there was civilization, there should usually be hope. Sensing one of the directions, Qin Feng sped up toward the void. This was an endless continent, as if sunk in the depths of a cloud of spirit qi of heaven and earth. A stream of light appeared from a distance around the cloud of spirit qi like a sudden clap of thunder. Qin Feng landed and looked at the huge continent deposited in the cloud of spirit qi in front of him. A trace of astonishment flashed across his face. When his clone entered the inner world, Qin Feng sensed that there was the aura of a powerhouse here. It definitely had its own civilization. However, he had never seen such a scene. Only to see that in the depths of the clouds there were many continents deposited. Countless clouds seemed to form many huge continents. In the sky above the continent deep in the clouds, it was like an island in the depths of the sky. A heavy and majestic aura struck Qin Feng's gaze. Like a mountain, like the heavens, the aura of a powerhouse. Just as Qin Feng looked over, he was close to the sky above the cloud of spirit qi. In the depths of a huge island in the Saint Realm, a majestic, sacred, and primitive terrifying spiritual sense suddenly swept over from the depths of the island. Feeling how terrifying and tyrannical that divine sense was, Qin Feng's countenance changed. He could clearly sense that the cultivation of the owner of the terrifying spiritual sense was higher than his. It was probably not weaker than the Gantian mountain monster lord. Pucci. His body flashed and instantly fell towards the continent deep in the clouds, disappearing into the edge of the cloud in the blink of an eye. Oh! As his divine consciousness swept out, a dignified and sacred voice appeared in the void, sounding a little puzzled. It swept all around, and an extremely powerful divine power swept out, as if trying to capture some clues from the void. However, the result was disappointing. He didn't find any traces of someone spying on him in the void. The owner of this spirit consciousness was still a little confused. He had clearly sensed that someone was spying on his palace from the void. His intuition couldn't be wrong. In the void, the spiritual sense lingered for a moment before returning to the island above the clouds. However, not long after, a light that pierced through the heavens and the earth shot from the floating island into the depths of the clouds, into the boundless continent. At the same time, in ancient temples all over the continent, countless powerhouses were alarmed. Search for foreign races. In the territory, if you find any foreign powerhouses, you have to report to the clan temple. Chapter 1810. In the vast land, mountains stood tall. The continuous mountains were filled with a primitive and rough style, and it was difficult to see any traces of humans in the miasma above the mountains. The dense branches and leaves blocked the sunlight from above. This was a hotbed for many poisonous plants and poisonous insects. Above the void, a stream of light flew down from the sky and stood on a leaf. Looking at the sky, he felt that the sky was far away and the land was vast. At a glance, it was like the primordial era. On the ground, the spiritual energy was very abundant, far surpassing the peak of the spirit sea world after the Golden Age. On the branches and leaves, Qin Feng stood on an ancient tree branch. He felt that the huge aura hovering above his head had dissipated, and he breathed a sigh of relief. As he had expected, the void barrier here was thicker, and there were more powerhouses born than in the surface world. He had just entered this civilized area when he encountered a powerful character. He did not know if it was because he was unlucky or because there were too many eternal powerhouses here. Looking at the lush primitive wilderness around him, Qin Feng could roughly estimate that even if there were civilizations in this area, they were probably barbaric civilizations. For example, the sacrificial civilization of the spirit sea world and the shaman Dao civilization. This kind of civilization was still at a relatively underground level in terms of social structure, but they had a very clear and powerful division of various spells. Primitive was usually associated with backwardness, but in this kind of civilization with supernatural abilities, they usually had extraordinary advantages. They were definitely not as incompetent and backward as one would imagine. Qin Feng knew that in this place, he had to be extremely careful. After all, the powerful character just now was a lesson. Next is to come into contact with the civilization here and see if I can find a way back or a way to gather providence again. Qin Feng thought to himself. At this time, after entering the inner world, the portion of providence in his body that he had obtained from the ancient heavenly court was cut off, and the casting of the eternal life chart was delayed. There are also treasures. At the thought of treasures, Qin Feng was a little excited. The void barrier here was extremely thick, and there were many powerhouses. At least, it meant that there were more resources for powerhouses to cultivate quickly and improve. He looked around the forest. This was a primeval forest in the mountains, surrounded by large mountains. The various mountain ranges intersected, and this was a forest with a relatively low terrain. At a glance, Qin Feng saw many spiritual plants with rich spiritual energy. Looking along the mountain range, there was a line where the spiritual qi rose all the way. Qin Feng's figure flashed and disappeared. Primitive civilizations usually gathered together in the form of tribes. Usually, there were two things that a primitive civilization would choose to live in. One was water, the other was food. If the tribe's production method was backward, they would need a fixed source of food, either the leftovers in the river or the various ferocious beasts in the forest. However, advanced primitive civilizations still needed an extremely important element when choosing a place to live. That was spirit qi. Living in a place with dense spirit qi, the clansmen born would usually have stronger cultivation talents. The experts in the clan would be nourished by the spirit qi for a long time, and their strength would also improve faster. In the ancient wolf forest, the mountain ranges were undulating and the vegetation was dense. The patriarch said that the noble blood of the Jiang tribe flows in our Ziya tribe. Once we reach adulthood, we must hunt down a ferocious beast of the fire attribute to have the chance to awaken our spirit fire. The stronger the ferocious beast we hunt, the stronger the spirit fire we awaken will be. I am the son of the tribe leader. When I was born, I was destined to become the strongest warrior in the tribe. I can't become a good-for-nothing and make my father be mocked by the other warriors. This is the deepest part of the forest that I can enter. It is rumored that there is a descendant of the divine bird Bai Fong here. I hope I can find a chance. Qin Feng's silhouette appeared on top of an ancient tree. Beneath the ancient tree, a mumbling sound could be heard, causing his brows to twitch. Lowering his head, under the branches, a skinny and weak-looking young man who was sitting on the roots of the tree and looking around entered his vision. The thin boy was about 15 or 16 years old. His long hair was tied in a simple ponytail. His shoulders were wide and his waist was narrow. He wore a tiger pelt and carried a bow and arrow on his back. He held a sharp spear in his hand and a large knife with a bone handle by his waist. It did not matter whether it was the arrow or the tip of the arrow, they were all blue. One look and anyone could tell that they were poisoned. There was a strange smell coming from his body. It was a medicinal liquid that could remove all traces of smell. At that moment, he looked around cautiously. Then, he grabbed a large gourd beside him and gulped it down. He looked like he was sweating profusely. Seeing this young man and hearing him talk to himself, a smile appeared on Qin Feng's face. From Qin Feng's perspective, he could tell with a glance that this young man had never cultivated before. However, the strength that he displayed was rather shocking. The weapon on his body also confirmed one of Qin Feng's guesses. This meant that he was close to the civilized world. But Qin Feng did not leave immediately. He looked at the boy under the tree with interest. After drinking a mouthful of water, the boy in the forest continued forward. Looking at this scene from the tree, Qin Feng had some ideas in his mind. The most important thing now was to blend into the land and erase the outsider's aura on him as soon as possible. No matter where you were, xenophobia was instinctive. His figure changed, and the black clothes on his body gradually disappeared, turning into an extremely rough-looking beast skin that wrapped around the upper half of his body. His white jade-like skin changed to the color of an ancient cave, with the texture of a fiend god. This made him look extremely domineering, but it didn't lose its coarseness and majesty. Qin Feng was now playing the role of an exiled powerhouse whose tribe had been scattered by powerful beasts and who had lost his tribe. Next, he had to blend into a tribe and understand this civilization. Or he could take advantage of the chaos to hide his identity and see if he could find a way back or earn some benefit. As for how to blend in, Qin Feng looked into the depths of the forest. A smile appeared on his face. The opportunity was coming soon. Chirp! In the depths of the forest, an extremely beautiful divine bird flapped its wings and descended from the top of a towering ancient tree with an extremely angry cry. It was an extremely beautiful bird with emerald red feathers. Its body was slender, like a red-colored crane, and its body was surrounded by emerald red flames. As the flames swept down, the surrounding tall and beautiful ancient trees were all set ablaze with rolling emerald red flames. Is it over? I actually met a descendant of the Bai Fong. I'm dead. The boy who had barged into the forest looked at the enraged and ferocious descendant of the Bai Fong with a pale face. This was indeed a fire-type beast, but it was a descendant of the Bai Fong. Bai Fong was one of the prehistoric ferocious beasts. Even though this descendant was only a senior ferocious beast, facing such a senior ferocious beast, even the most powerful warriors of Xia clan had to consider their own strength. Chapter 1811. Father, your son has let you down. Not only did I not win glory for you, I am going to die in front of this descendant of the Bai Fong and let you send me off. When he thought of the sad part, hot tears flowed down the young man's face in despair. Boom! A huge explosion sounded, accompanied by a sorrowful cry. Rolling heat waves swept over. The young man who was in despair sensed something strange and immediately opened his eyes. He saw a strange young man he had never seen before, like a demon god descending from the sky. He grabbed the mouth of that terrifying descendant of the Bai Fong. The young man opened his mouth wide and looked at this scene in disbelief. The mouth of the Bai Fong was comparable to the divine weapons of some large clans. Not to mention grabbing it, even if an ordinary elite warrior approached it, they would be pecked by that sharp beak. There was also that terrifying divine fire of the Bai Fong. That was one of the flames with the highest temperature in the desolate land. Bang! That young man raised one hand, there seemed to be light on his palm. Like a moving mountain, he knocked on the skull of that descendant of the Bai Fong. This descendant of the Bai Fong didn't even have time to cry out before its head was cracked open. Chi. Only the emerald-red flames burned inch by inch on its body, indicating how powerful this terrifying descendant of the Bai Fong was in the past. The young man looked at this scene with a stupefied expression. Especially when his eyes fell on Qin Feng, his eyes became extremely respectful and shocked. In the clash between clans, the strong preyed on the weak. This was an unchanging truth. Since young, the young man had been told by the elite warriors of the clan that he had to learn to respect this forest, to respect the existences that were stronger than him in this land. Being humble was not because of fear, but to learn how to become strong. Qin Feng turned around and looked at the young man, who suddenly became stupefied, cautious, careful, and respectful. A trace of a strange smile appeared on his face. "Little guy from the Ziya clan? Senior, you know me?" When the young man was called, he suddenly felt overwhelmed. He looked at Qin Feng carefully with a respectful and nervous expression. "Senior, which clan are you from?" "I am from the Cloud Qin clan." Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of brilliance. From the memories of the youth belonged to a branch of the Ziya clan. The Ziya clan originated from a branch of the Jiang clan. The Jiang clan was one of the noblest clans in this land. The surname Jiang was the royal family, and it was supreme. The rest of the families had the surname Jiang as their main family, and there were many other branches, such as the Jiang Ziya family, the Jiang Shenong family, the Jiang Zhurong family, the Jiang Yutai family, the Jiang Lu family, the Xie family, the Qi family, the Gao family, and the Cui family. Yunqin clan was also a branch with the surname Jiang. However, in this youth's memories, because of the merging war between the clans, Yunqin clan was already in ruins. The remnant clans fled into dangerous areas filled with vicious beasts, rumored to have already been wiped out. Besides these noble clans, there were many smaller clans that were derived from some subsidiary clans, such as the Dongua clan, the Qiu clan, and so on and so forth. In the young man's memory, the origin of the surname Jiang came from a supreme clan in this land, the Flame Emperor. Therefore, the awakened powers of the Jiang clan were mostly related to fire. For example, after the Ziya clan killed vicious beasts and bathed themselves in blood, they would give birth to the spiritual fire of the surname Ziya. And for the Yunqin clan, after killing vicious beasts, they would give birth to the surname Yanlong. That was a type of surname power. Usually, the higher the level of the surname, the more powerful the birth power. And for the Jiang royal Shenong family, the surname power born from the Zhu Rong family would usually be extremely terrifying. Every year, during the surname ceremony of those thrones, many terrifying geniuses and freaks would be born. When he heard that Qin Feng was protecting his family, the young man's eyes lit up. The Yunqin clan was also one of the higher clans, and they both belonged to a branch of the Jiang clan. Instantly, within the young man's reverence, there was an additional trace of intimacy. "So it's a senior from the Yunqin clan. Ziya clan, thanks sir for saving my life." He gave a serious bow. "What Yunqin clan? The Yunqin clan has long been destroyed by the ancestral temple. Now I am only a stray dog." Qin Feng sighed and pretended to be sad. Hearing these words, the young man's eyes moved. "This senior has lost his clan. If we can recruit him into my Ziya clan, to the Ziya clan, I am afraid he will be a powerful aid. Besides, those warriors have always been eyeing my father's position as the patriarch. If we have the help of this Yunqin senior, perhaps..." Thinking here, the young man became even more eager. The young man took a few steps forward and said respectfully, Senior, you're too modest. With your strength, you'll be treated with great courtesy no matter which clan you enter. If you're willing to visit our Xia clan as a guest, our Xia clan will treat you with the highest courtesy. Qin Feng glanced at the young man. This young man was still a bit immature. Facing the young man's enthusiasm, Qin Feng's expression was noncommittal. He did not refuse, nor did he agree. He only said lightly, "You seem to need a vicious beast to complete the awakening ceremony." Instantly, the young man reacted from his fervent excitement. Then, that descendant of the Bai Fong occupied his eyes. When he raised his head, Qin Feng's figure had already disappeared from where he stood. "Senior! Senior!" The young man's expression was somewhat depressed. The powerful aide that had arrived in front of him had also disappeared. But fortunately, there was still this descendant of the Bai Fong. Looking at the vicious beast on the ground, his expression immediately returned to joy. The young man reorganized his emotions and began to prepare to bathe in the beast's blood. Such a huge vicious beast was at least enough for 2 people to complete the awakening ceremony. At this moment, he enjoyed it alone, so he could take the best blood to ensure the greatest extent and the most efficient awakening of the clan's power. On the ancient tree, Qin Feng did not leave as the young man thought. Instead, he stood behind an ancient tree that the young man could not discover and watched this scene with interest. The power of serene was a power that Qin Feng was completely unfamiliar with. Qin Feng was quite interested in this power. Of course, he also hoped to benefit from it. After all, he might have to deal with those clan's experts for a long time in the future. However, bathing in blood was much simpler and more crude than Qin Feng imagined. Stripping naked and bathing in the beast's blood, then swallowing some of the beast's blood and using a special hand-seal secret technique, Qin Feng saw that the young man kneeling on the ground had begun to change from his body to his soul. Rumble! Like a ball of muffled thunder, emerald red flames appeared behind the young man's back and floated behind him. As he absorbed the beast's blood, the emerald red flames became denser and denser, soaring into the sky. As if discovering the remnants of the Bai Fong descendant on the ground, the flames suddenly descended and engulfed the corpse of the Bai Fong descendant. In the process of engulfing, the flames clearly grew stronger, and the young man who was connected to the flames had an obvious increase in his aura. His muscles undulated, and countless impurities were expelled from his pores during this process. Being reborn. This seemed to be a very magical cultivation method. Digression. Actually, this plot was prepared by the author for the new book, but some people say that the author has not been sincere recently. Then show some sincerity and use another plot for the new book. The author should belong to the creative type, able to persevere and dare to try to innovate. In fact, there are many super good ideas in his head, guaranteed to explode with pleasure. The new book is really waiting to be published, but one has to finish what one has started. Before this book is finished, the new book will temporarily save some manuscripts, but at this point, I still have to say that this book has entered the later stage. Everyone, please support me. Let's not brag and try to have millions of manuscripts before this book is finished. Chapter 1812. This kind of cultivation was very magical. Qin Feng noticed that after refining the essence, energy, and spirit of a ferocious beast, there was a 10% to 1% chance of obtaining some of the ferocious beast's skills. For example, the power of the Bai Fong descendant to control the Bai Fong divine fire had already been obtained by the youth. If he was lucky, he could even directly refine some of the key divine bones of the Bai Fong divine bird as an external bone graft, such as the 2 Bai Fong divine wings. If he could grow the Bai Fong divine wings, it would undoubtedly be more convenient in his early cultivation. After devouring the essence, energy, and spirit of the Bai Fong descendant, the emerald red flames around the youth became more solid. Under the youth's control, they soared around him, looking very cool. In reality, it wasn't just cool. It was also extremely powerful. This was the power of the Xia clan's surname. The spiritual fire of the Xia clan had another characteristic. It could evolve as it devoured other flames, turning into all kinds of powerful spiritual fires, divine fires, and even become a clan god. Most of the descendants of the Yen Emperor were fire gods who grew up this way. After awakening the fire seed of the surname, the youth seemed to have been reborn. Not only his strength, but his mental appearance had also changed. He was like a lion that had caught its first prey and had truly grown up, exuding a strong sense of confidence. Xia had indeed built up his confidence after receiving the gift of a high-level ferocious beast like the Bai Fong descendant. At this time, even among the younger generation of the Xia clan, he had jumped from trash to one of the best. Moreover, when he awakened the spiritual fire of the surname, he had monopolized the blood essence of a high-level ferocious beast. This kind of treatment was comparable to some royal disciples. In terms of potential, he was definitely not inferior to those peerless geniuses of the royal family. Looking around, Xia suppressed his excitement and hurriedly left the place, heading straight for the tribe. On the tree branch, Qin Feng watched Xia leave with a trace of indifference. If he showed up at this time and brought him into the tribe, he could indeed get some preferential treatment in the Xia tribe, but this would easily attract suspicion. If an unfamiliar expert were to enter another tribe, he would be ostracized. No matter how courteous and hospitable the tribe was, Qin Feng hoped to learn more about the secrets of the clan through the Xia clan. He even wanted to make use of them to establish a foothold in this vast land. At the very least, he wanted to know how many existences like the Jiang clan god were out there. Was there an ancient existence like the Jiang clan god? He could use this tribe as a springboard to enter the royal family. At the very least, he had to enter the circle of the clan gods to have a chance to get clues to leave the inner world. Qin Feng gazed at the Bai Fong's nest above the treetop. The Bai Fong was different from other ferocious birds. It did not live alone, nor did it live in group. Usually there were 3 to 4 in a nest, one male and several females. In this way, they would nurture their offspring together and ensure the reproduction of the population to the greatest extent. The male hunted outside and usually left 1 or 2 females to take care of the chicks or incubate the eggs. Above the huge nest in the middle of the forest, there were 4 nests that formed a circular nest. There were several jade-like eggs in the nest. It was lying quietly in the emerald green and golden red nest. After Xia entered the depths of the forest, she was immediately greeted with respect by the descendant of the Bai Fong. It was not only because Xia had entered the territory of the descendant of the Bai Fong, but also because the descendant of the Bai Fong saw Xia as an egg thief. In this season, when the treetops were filled with the hormones of ferocious birds, female birds were usually extremely aggressive in order to protect their chick. Looking at this bird's nest, traces of a smile appeared in Qin Feng's eyes. Although the descendant of the Bai Fong was not as vengeful as the dragon Yazi, these high-level ferocious beasts with some intelligence were not to be trifled with. Chirp, chirp, just as Qin Feng expected. Not long after, 3 Bai Fong divine birds that had gone out to look for food returned with several poisonous snakes in their mouth. When they saw the broken feathers of the Bai Fong female bird on the ground, they immediately raised their heads and chirped. The chirping of the birds was filled with sadness and anger. Chirp. After sorrowfully circling the place where the female bird had fallen, one of the female birds landed in the bird's nest on the tree trunk, leaving only the male bird. The female bird stared at the direction where Xia had left and followed the scent aggressively towards the Xia tribe. Looking at this scene, Qin Feng smiled. He took out a strand of hair and blew it gently. He locked onto an empty space in the forest and transformed it into a simple stone house on the ground. Qin Feng's current strength had far surpassed the monkey's strength. The monkey's hair could change into thousands of forms, but it did not have the property of eternity. Qin Feng had already touched on the mystery of eternity. The transformation of his hair could be seen as an ordinary stone house. Even if the god of the Jiang tribe came, he would definitely not be able to see through the mystery and would only think that it was a real stone house. Qin Feng leaped and landed in front of the stone house. With a wave of his sleeve, many seeds on the ground sprouted and formed a fence, a vegetable field. A wandering expert who lived in seclusion leaped into his sight. Qin Feng walked closer to the stone house and looked at it. Satisfaction appeared in his eyes. Next, he just had to wait for the fish to take the bait. The impact that the two enraged descendants of the Baifeng could cause was huge. In the stone house, Qin Feng could clearly see that in the sky not far away, the two descendants of the Baifeng were wantonly venting their anger at the Ziya tribe. In the evening, the rolling flames burned the gathering place of the Ziya tribe until it was red. Curses, screams, angry roars, and the cries of many babies caused the entire gathering place to boil like a pot of porridge. The two divine birds of the Baifeng were also ferocious. When they took revenge, they looked like they were going to raze the Ziya tribe to the ground. Although the Ziya tribe was one of the higher tribes, this branch was just a branch of the Ziya tribe. Their strength was not strong. Facing the two ferocious divine birds of the Baifeng, the tribe was like a weak woman encountering bandits. Their resistance was limited. Seeing that the two divine birds of the Baifeng were harming the Ziya tribe, Qin Feng could not sit by and watch the Ziya tribe be wiped out. His expression changed slightly. In front of the stone house, Qin Feng plucked out a strand of hair and blew it out. A gale swept up and whistled through the forest for dozens of miles. Screech! A bird cry resounded through the thick clouds. A golden-winged roc with a wingspan of dozens of feet suddenly appeared in the sky. It swept across the sky with a wild, ferocious, and domineering aura like golden light. Screech, screech! Seeing the appearance of the golden-winged roc, the two divine birds of the Baifeng instantly panicked. The descendants of the golden-winged roc were ancient ferocious beasts. They were overlords in the sky. In front of such a ferocious bird, the two divine birds of the Baifeng were not enough to be swallowed in one bite. Screech, screech! Not caring about harming the Ziya tribe, the two ferocious birds hurriedly flew into the depths of the forest to avoid the ferocious golden-winged roc above them. Chapter 1813. At this time, the experts of the Ziya clan were stunned. The Golden Pool Roc was an ancient ferocious bird in the depths of the desolate lands. Two Baifeng divine birds were enough to destroy the gathering place of the Ziya clan. Now that they had provoked the Golden-Winged Roc, how could the Ziya clan survive? The group of experts of the Ziya clan stiffened and their souls trembled when the Golden-Winged Roc's golden pupils moved back and forth. Go to the ancestral temple and prepare to invite the ancestors. In the middle of the dome-shaped wooden stronghold, the eldest son of the Ziya clan, Yabali, gritted his teeth and said, "Every clan worshipped their own powerhouses. Through the idols in the ancestral halls of the clan temples, the powerhouses of the clan could immediately sense the current situation of a branch of the clan. If necessary, they could even hold a large-scale sacrifice and summon a wisp of divine consciousness of the clan's experts. It was too late to hold a sacrifice now, but they could use the blood sacrifice to summon the clan's experts with the lives of the Ziya clan's experts. No one was willing to sacrifice their lives unless they had no other choice. But what made the entire Ziya clan rejoice was that the terrifying golden-winged roc did not seem to care about their lives. With a flap of its wings, it flew up and disappeared from the sky above the Ziya clan in the blink of an eye. Only then did the calamity subside. Until late at night, the chaos of the Ziya clan had not subsided. In the gathering place, the cries of the clansmen could be heard from time to time. A sorrowful atmosphere filled this wild hope that was blown by the summer wind. In the ancestral temple, at the top were specially carved statues of gods. They were dignified and sacred. On both sides sat warriors of the Shur clan with cold and angry expressions. The eldest son of the clan, Yabali, looked at the youth kneeling on the ground with disappointment. "You beast, the clan order clearly says that without the clan's great sacrifice, the clansmen are not allowed to enter the mountain range to avoid attracting trouble. You beast, you are so stubborn. Today's disaster was caused by you. You should explain to those dead and injured clansmen yourself." Zia Bar closed his eyes, but the hand behind him had already squeezed into his flesh. When Zia awakened the power of the surname, he was undoubtedly the happiest. He only had one son. But now Zia had caused too much trouble. Because of those two Baifeng descendants, the entire Zia clan had suffered a great loss, and he couldn't explain it to his clansmen. At this moment, Queen Zia was kneeling on the futon, facing the statue in the ancestral hall. She could feel the angry gazes of the people around her. She felt wronged and anger burned in her heart. He only wanted to become stronger. Was that wrong? Clan leader, don't blame him. We watched young Empress grow up. He didn't do it on purpose. At the side, a long-haired old man with a walking stick and a snake walking stick stood out. This old man had triangular eyes, and the most peculiar thing about him was that the earrings on his earlobes were actually two long red gold worms that were still alive. His figure was stooped, but in the ancestral hall, the only one who could match his aura was the patriarch of the Zia clan. He was the patriarch of Zia clan. Every clan had a patriarch and several patriarch attendant. The patriarch was in charge of all the sacrificial ceremonies in the clan. He was also the doctor of each clan, and each patriarch was a powerful warrior who had walked out of the clan's shaman academy. They might not be good at fighting, but when it came to herbs, diagrams of runes, divination, communication with the main clan, and other things, they learned a variety of things, and they were incredibly important in each clan. Sometimes, the words of the patriarch were even more effective than that of the clan leader. Zia Bar's expression was gloomy. Even so, I am no longer shameless enough to be the clan leader of Zia clan. Zia Bar lifted his head abruptly. In his original impression, Zia Bar was always full of confidence, high spirits, and high spirits. He was a wise clan leader who led his clansmen through all obstacles. However, at this moment, he realized that his father seemed to have aged. In an instant, he seemed to have aged by dozens of years, as if he had entered his twilight years. He could see joy flashing across the faces of his uncles around him. Damn it, these people are clearly using this to threaten father and force him to give up the position of the clan leader. Zia Bar was furious. The patriarch saw the expressions of the other people in the ancestral hall and said coldly, "It's not up to Zia clan to decide whether to give up the position of the clan leader." The two Baifeng divine birds might have been scared away by the golden-winged roc, but divine birds like Baifeng are born to hold grudges. He paused for a moment and looked at the people in the ancestral hall whose expressions had changed. This time, our Zia clan killed a Baifeng. As long as our Zia clan doesn't move away, they will return. Next time, we won't be so lucky to encounter a golden-winged great pring passing by. What? There's such a thing? How could this be? Then what should we do now? A hint of panic appeared on the faces of the powerful warriors of Zia clan. They could no longer care about fighting for power. Zia Bar was completely stunned, but then he looked at the patriarch nervously. "Patriarch, what should we do now?" "There's one way. We move away with the entire clan." With his long hair falling on his shoulders, the patriarch's expression was cold. Move away with the entire clan? Including Zia Bar, all the powerful warriors of Zia clan in the ancestral hall had incredibly sour expressions. In an instant, some of the powerful warriors in the ancestral hall sat down on their chairs, unable to summon any strength. Moving away with the entire clan was not a game. To any clan, moving was a nightmare that they would never want to talk about. Moving with the entire clan was not a matter of one person running from one place to another. The mountains were filled with too many dangers. ferocious beasts, poisonous insects, hunger, and bad weather. The powerful warriors of the clan might be powerful, but in the vast land, they were still too insignificant. They were like a grain of sand in the ocean. During the migration, if anything went wrong, it could cause the clan to lose members or even be wiped out. Many of the clans would usually suffer great losses during the migration. Some of the old, weak, sick, and disabled were bound to die. Even the powerful warriors in the clan would have to face the choice of life and death. After staying in one place for a long time, who would be willing to leave their entire family behind? There's another way. At that moment, a voice broke the silence in the ancestral hall. Everyone's eyes suddenly lit up. They looked towards the source of the voice and looked at Xia clan's queen. Queen, don't talk nonsense. When he saw Xia Bar's face became strangely angry. This bastard, how dare he talk nonsense after causing such a big trouble? In the ancestral hall, many powerful warriors cast their gazes on Xia clan's queen. Their expressions were different, but most of them were clearly disdainful. Even they could not do anything. How could an immature child do it? The patriarch cast his gaze on Xia clan's queen with an expressionless face. When she saw the situation, the anger on Xia clan's queen's face disappeared and turned into calmness. When she remembered the powerful warrior who had easily killed the Baifeng divine bird, Xia clan's queen became more confident. Chapter 1814. On the second day, the sky had just begun to brighten. The faint rays of morning light fell on the forest, covered by the dense forest. Young Empress, this is the forest where you discovered the powerful warrior who called himself Yunqin clan? You mustn't spout nonsense. In front of the forest, several figures appeared in front of the dense forest. Right now, the cool night breeze had just passed. Even though midsummer had yet to arrive, the forest was not like the early morning of autumn, full of dewdrops. Even though the forest was lush and verdant, with all sorts of green plants hanging on people's pants, it was still rather refreshing. Under the sunlight, the wrinkles on Xia Bar's slightly aged face were obvious. This Xia clan's leader, who was in the prime of his life, seemed to have turned white overnight. Father, at such a crucial moment, how could I speak nonsense? Xia Empress looked at this already slightly aged face, her heart filled with bitterness. At the same time she was worried, her face was filled with confidence. Also, if it wasn't for that senior from Yunqin clan helping me kill the divine bird Baifeng, I might not have been able to awaken such a powerful clan power. That's good. Even though this was not the first time he confirmed it, Xia Bar's old face still couldn't help but have a hint of anticipation. However, behind him, the patriarch and the warriors of the tribe had grave expressions. According to what Xia Empress said, to be able to kill the divine bird Baifeng with just a wave of his hand, this was clearly not something a normal powerful warrior should have. Even in Xia Southern Zhang manner, he might not be an ordinary person. These people walked into the depths of the forest with a skeptical attitude, carefully searching. Even though they still felt that this young clan chief was dreaming, the changes in his body were real. What if they could find that powerful warrior from Yunqin clan? They're here. On the stone house, Qin Feng, who was lying on the roof, instantly opened his eyes. There was a hint of a smile in his eyes. Pucci. With a leap, his body floated lightly, disappearing from the roof like a ghost. Roar, roar. Following several terrifying tiger roars that resounded through the forest, the sun had already risen above the branches. Whoosh whoosh. Several figures shot through the forest like arrows, appearing outside a mountain range shrouded in fog. Damn it, why are there so many descendants of the Kaming beast here? They're chasing us, and if we keep running, we'll lose our lives. A figure panted as he looked at the huge figure behind him that was rapidly stirring the leaves in the forest. His expression changed drastically. This was really a group of people from the Xia clan. They traveled through the forest and searched for half a day. They had suffered a lot. There were a lot of fierce beasts living in this mountain range. There were a lot of high-level fierce beasts. As soon as they entered the mountain ridge, they were targeted by the descendant of the Caming Beast, the overlord of this territory. The descendants of the Caming Beasts were similar to tigers, but each of them was extremely powerful, not much weaker than the Baifeng divine birds. The Caming Beast was one of the top predators in the primitive mountains. Together with the descendants of the Bai, Hui, and Hui, they were nightmarish existences in the mountains. When encountering these high-level ferocious beasts, unless an expert of the same level appeared, there was only one outcome in the eyes of these ferocious beasts. Ziya and the others were not lucky. They had just killed a few greedy predators when the descendants of the Caming Beasts caught the scent of blood and chased after them. The group was in a pathetic state as they fought and ran. The three warriors behind them stayed behind to hold back the descendants of the Caming Beasts to give them a chance to live, but they had already died. Only Ziya and his son, as well as the patriarch, were left. It was thanks to the patriarch that the father and son managed to escape, but even so, the patriarch had used up a lot of energy. He was almost at the end of his rope and his face was sallow. Their bodies were covered in blood, and they looked incredibly wretched. "Look, there's a stone house over there." At that moment, the sharp-eyed Ziya suddenly saw the stone house in the depths of the forest and was instantly overjoyed. When Ziya, Bar, and the patriarch heard her words, they lifted their heads and were also overjoyed. Roar, roar! Accompanied by a few roars that shook the mountains, the descendants of the Caming Beast also arrived. The three people's faces turned pale. In the distance, the Caming Beast's descendants with large bodies and sharp fangs had already appeared in the forest. Whoosh whoosh! But against their expectations, once they entered the mountain range, the ferocious Caming Beasts seemed to have smelled some ancient ferocious beast and were frightened. They howled and retreated like a whirlwind without even turning their heads back. When they saw this, Ziya and the other two knew that there was an incredibly terrifying existence living in the stone house. "Looks like there's hope for our Ziya family." Ziya and Bar were not shocked. Instead, they were delighted. When they saw this, Ziya let out a sigh of relief. But at that moment, a faint voice rang out in the forest. "Who are you?" The three of them raised their heads and looked over. Not far away, on top of a fallen tree, there was a figure wearing a half-body beast skin coat and a beast skirt. He looked like a demon god standing on top of the tree, indifferently looking at the three of them. Almost the moment he looked over, the trio felt as if a devil had cast his gaze on them. Under that gaze, their bodies stiffened, and they could not summon any thoughts of fighting back. "Senior." Ziya stood out with a slightly uneasy expression and walked in front of Ziya, Bar, and Master Patriarch. On the tree, Qin Feng looked at the trio indifferently. After a moment, he landed on the ground like a phantom. "Come with me." In a simple stone house, there were a few plates of wild fruits on a round stone table. The layout of the house was very crude, but it was very cozy. There were a few beast skins, a bow and arrow, a few quivers of arrows, and quite a number of tools hanging on the stone wall. There was also the smell of herbs. The stone separated the stone house into 3 rooms. One was the guest room, one was the bedroom, and the last one was the kitchen. It looked very decent. There was a square table in the center of the guest room. Ziya and the other two were all people who knew what was good for them. It did not matter whether it was the beast skins or the other tools, they all seemed to be very valuable. The square table was carved out of high-grade spirit wood. The beast skins exuded a lingering pressure. Some of them were plucked from high-grade ferocious beasts, and one of them exuded the pressure of a suzerain. It had a primitive and savage air to it. It was the skin of an ancient ferocious beast. This made the trio's expressions turn a little dazed and shocked. The skin of an ancient ferocious beast was something that only the powerful warriors of Ziya's southern Zhang mansion, who had control over countless tribes and forces of power, could enjoy. There were also the plates of wild fruits on the square table that were used to attract the trio. Those were clearly precious spirit fruits that were incredibly valuable in the untamed wasteland. These spirit fruits were usually guarded by ancient ferocious beasts and ancient ferocious beasts. There was no way they would be easily picked by others. The trio suddenly felt a little flustered. This was not something that could be explained by the strength of a powerful warrior wandering in Yunshin clan. This was an important person, and he might have a great background. Could Ziya clan invite such an important person? Chapter 1815. The three of them devoured the spirit fruits on the table like a whirlwind. After eating a few spirit fruits, the injuries on their bodies were more or less healed. Leave after you finish eating. I'll give you a strand of my hair. With my presence, those caming beasts won't dare to chase after you anymore. Qin Feng walked in and looked at them indifferently. Are you senior? Hearing that, Ziya became anxious. Just as he was about to speak, the patriarch stopped him. Young queen, don't be rude. Seeing the patriarch's serious expression, Ziya was anxious, but he still chose to swallow the words that were about to come out of his mouth. The patriarch's dignity had long been deeply rooted in people's hearts. He walked to Qin Feng's side and knelt down on one knee with a respectful expression. Senior, I know that we may not have any treasures that can move you, and the rewards we can offer are not even comparable to any of the treasures in your house. It is indeed rude to ask you to help us so rashly. But I still ask you to help the Ziya clan for the sake of the countless old, weak, sick, and disabled people in the tribe. If the Ziya clan can still thrive on this land, we will never forget your kindness. We will build a temple for you and worship you for generations to repay your kindness. Build a temple? Qin Feng raised his eyebrows and read some of their memories. It was easy for Qin Feng to understand what a temple was. Usually, in this land, only the most powerful people in the clan who had reached the archaic level had the right to enjoy the treatment of a temple. It was something similar to the karmic position of a region master. Many powerful people would leave the tribe after they reached adulthood and explore the savage wastelands to build their reputation. In the end, they would obtain a part of the temple. However, compared to the karmic position of a region master, the karmic position of a tribe's temple could at most be compared to the lowest karmic position of the land god and the mountain god. But if one could obtain a temple, it would be quite impressive. It would be of some help to an eternal like Qin Feng. If he could get the strongest and noblest bloodline like the Jiang family to worship him, then he wouldn't be any weaker than the Gantian mountain monster lord or Pangu saint emperor. He might even surpass them. This discovery made Qin Feng's eyes light up as he secretly thought of something. If he could be worshipped by a royal family, he would be able to attain the eternal fate chart and become an eternal sacred ancestor. It would only be a matter of time. On the side, Ziya, Bar, and Ziya's father and son looked at Qin Feng eagerly, waiting for him to express his opinion. Ordinary clans would build ancestral temples. Other than the ancestors, they would also build shrines to worship the strong. This was the norm in this land. Worshipping the strong could not only ensure the survival of the tribe in this terrifying and vast land with countless fierce beasts, but also ensure that there would be enough strong people in the tribe. As the party being sacrificed, unless they were dead, in order to ensure the source of their worship, they would choose to act when some tribes were in danger of being exterminated. Or every year during the sacrificial ceremony, they would sow the seeds of a strong warrior in the tribe. This was a mutually beneficial relationship. When the tribe worshipped the strong warriors of the clan, they would seek protection from the strong warriors of the clan, and the strong warriors of the clan would obtain the worship from the tribe to improve further. For the Ziya clan, worshipping a new strong warrior of the clan was extremely worth it. Especially when Qin Feng had revealed his identity, that he was a strong warrior of the Yunshin clan. The Yunshin clan was also a branch of the Jiang clan. Worshipping this strong warrior of the Yunshin clan would have the chance to mutate the strength of their clan and obtain a part of the Yunshin clan's flame dragon. This kind of integration was undoubtedly beneficial. Those royal families, which one of them didn't worship the strongest warriors of many clans to ensure that their clan would always be in the strongest group. But even so, the three people of the Ziya clan were still somewhat nervous. For a strong warrior like Qin Feng, he might not care about the worship of a small clan. In this land there were countless small clans like the Ziya clan. Do you think with my strength, I would care about the worship of a small clan? Qin Feng looked at the three people of the Ziya clan. Senior. Although the three people of the Ziya clan were already mentally prepared, they were still greatly disappointed when they heard these words, and even more so felt despair. A smile flashed across Qin Feng's eyes as he looked at the expressions of the three of them. Immediately, he changed the topic, however, on account of the relationship between the elders and the weak in your tribe. I can also lend all of you a hand. Thank you, senior, thank you, senior. This was truly the case of the mountain reaching the end of the river, the light at the end of the tunnel. The three of them experienced great sorrow and great joy, yet they didn't know what to feel inside. Although they already received Qin Feng's approval, when they thought about their clansmen, a trace of anxiety appeared on Ziya Bariai's face. Seeing that dusk was about to arrive, after being in the forest for half a day, they didn't know how their clansmen were doing. Senior, I wonder if it's possible. He looked at Qin Feng with a somewhat nervous expression. Qin Feng shot a glance at him and shook his head slightly. No need to go through so much trouble, I will directly help you catch those Bai Fong. The three of them were stunned, and then they were overjoyed at the unexpected good news. It couldn't be any better. Once he finished speaking, Qin Feng went straight into the house and took down a quiver on the wall under the three's gaze. There were still several black feather arrows in the quiver. He took the bow and arrow, then took down a quaint-looking ancient sword from the wall and threw it to Ziya. Hold it for me. Ziya was flattered and quickly held the sheathed ancient sword with both hands. Crack! She held the sword hilt and pulled it out slightly. She felt a sharp brilliance blossoming from the sword that was like autumn water. Ziya, who was right in front of it, let out a cry of surprise, as if her soul had been cut open. She immediately put the ancient sword back into the sheath in a flurry. Only then did the chill that made people's hair stand up disappear. What a miraculous divine weapon! When Ziya Bariai and the master saw this, they looked at each other and sucked in a breath of cold air. Qin Feng cast a glance at it indifferently. This so-called divine weapon was just made by him casually gathering the essence of the moon. He gathered the cold air of the moon and refined it into something mysterious. He could make countless of such weapons with a snap of his fingers. Let's go. Qin Feng took the lead and left the stone house. Ziya and the other two followed closely behind. With Qin Feng taking the lead, their journey was much smoother. Besides having to pay attention to some poisonous spirit plants and traps in the forest, the group basically went straight into the forest. In the forest, some of the powerful Bai, Ho, and Kaming beast descendants sensed Qin Feng's presence that was not weaker than that of the ancient ferocious beasts, and ran away. Soon, they approached the territory of the Bai Fong divine bird. Chapter 1816. Chirp Chirp. The three Bai Fong beasts in the nest on the tree went berserk when they sensed Ziya's presence from afar and noticed the bird killer approaching. The three beautiful Bai Fong beasts surrounded the tree. Their emerald-red feathers were burning with emerald-red divine fire. A heat wave that filled the sky and earth pressed down on the air, making it hard for people to breathe. The faces of the three people from Ziya's family had already turned incredibly pale. Among the three of them, Ziya had just awakened her power and was only a low-level middle-stage warrior. Ziya, Bar, and the master were slightly better. They had already reached the peak of the middle level, but they were still some distance away from reaching the higher level. They could not be compared to the Baifeng beasts, not to mention the 3 Baifeng beasts. But at that moment, the young man wrapped in beast skin drew his bow. The bowstring was like a full moon, and he shot 3 arrows in succession. Bang, bang, bang! The 3 of them seemed to have heard 3 thunderous sounds. The arrows were like thunder. 3 rays of dark light pierced through the sky. The 3 Baifeng beasts that flew up from the tree fell down. Shik shik! They could not fight back. They did not even have time to cry out. The 3 Baifeng beasts fell down. Bang, bang, bang! 3 huge pits were formed on the ground. Qin Feng drew back his bow and pulled back his bow. He did it in one breath. Ziya and the other 2 stared at the scene in a daze. They were still in a dream. The Baifeng beasts that were like the god of death to Ziya's family were like normal chickens in the hands of such a powerful warrior. Alright, let's hurry up and deal with these 3 Baifeng beasts. There are still a few eggs in the nest on the tree. We can take them together. Those eggs will not lose to high-grade spirit fruits. But we have to be quick. The Baifeng beasts here are all descendants of a pure-blooded divine bird. This mountain range is also the territory of that pure-blooded ancient ferocious bird. If we're late, we might be in trouble. Qin Feng looked indifferent as he looked into the depths of the mountain range in the distance. A pure-blooded Baifeng, an ancient ferocious beast? The 3 of them shuddered and immediately came to their senses. The 3 of them discussed. Ziya, Bar, and the master went forward to deal with the corpses of the 3 Baifeng beasts, while Ziya went to get the eggs. Within a short period of time, the group slowly left the forest. Qin Feng brought up the rear with a thoughtful look in his eyes. He wondered if he should lure the pure-blooded Baifeng over. However, he immediately shook his head. Going too far was as bad as not going far enough. Perhaps the sudden appearance of an elite warrior from the Yunqin clan would make people feel surprised, but they would not suspect anything. However, if an immemorial elite warrior that could easily kill a pure-blooded Baifeng had suddenly appeared from the southern Zhang mansion, most likely it would attract attention. Half a year later in the Xia tribe. In the majestic ancestral hall of the Xia clan. A few months ago, the Xia clan had given birth to 2 high-level experts in succession, and their territory had expanded by half. The Xia clan's ancestral temple had also increased in number. In the tribe, on the wide flat ground, there were many childish shouts. In the morning light, a group of teenagers between the ages of 6 and 15 or 16 were eating their arms and sweating on a few wide rocks. Many of the adult clansmen and women were reclaiming wasteland, planting fruits and trees, or planting grains. Many of them were fishing by the river. The dome-shaped wooden stronghold was located high up on the riverbank, near the mountains and water. It looked very peaceful. The men plowed and the women weaved. It looked very peaceful. Occasionally, one could see old people who were over 70 years old sitting under the ancient trees of the stronghold with smiles on their faces. The pain from the accident half a year ago seemed to have been completely healed. At the entrance of the stronghold, Xia, Bar, Patriarch, and a group of warriors were reluctantly bidding farewell to 2 people. 2 months later, it was the enrollment day of the Southern Zhang Mansion's Spiritual Flame Academy. Although the Spiritual Flame Academy was not a divine demon sect, nor was it an orthodox clan, the Water Mansion Palace, or the Mountain God sect, it had the advantage of having a lower threshold. Every year, countless clans would send their talented experts to the academies set up by the clans to cultivate. These academies were all clan schools. If they succeeded, as long as their luck was not too bad, they could have a good future. If their luck was good, they might be valued by the nobles and enter the orthodox clan. The worst orthodox clan was on the same scale as the Southern Zhang Mansion. It was definitely not something a small clan like the Xia clan could compare to. Entering the orthodox clan was the first step to coming into contact with the divine demon border. This step could be said to be very important to some ambitious youths. Originally, the Xia clan did not have much confidence in the Spiritual Flame Academy. The Xia clan was originally a small clan that struggled to survive. Even surviving in the clan was difficult, let alone having the resources to nurture the clan's disciples. But the appearance of Xia later ignited the flames of hope in Xia and Bar. With the help of the Baifeng beast's blood essence and awakening the clan's spirit fire, Xia's talent now did not lose to some of the big clans and even the geniuses of the royal families. If that was all, it would be fine. After all, the Xia clan was far away from the southern Zhang mansion. Two high-level warriors might not be able to send Xia safely to the southern Zhang mansion. But with this powerful expert in front of him, sending Xia to the southern Zhang mansion for the test was a piece of cake. Even though they had been in contact for half a year, Xia and Bar still had the most sincere respect for Qin Feng. "Sir, I'll leave my son to you. Young Empress, the journey to the southern Zhang mansion is long and dangerous. You have to listen to my orders. Don't act recklessly. Poor parents. Don't worry, clan leader. I'll take care of this boy for you. In a few years, I'll return a peerless expert to the Xia clan." Qin Feng nodded slightly and cast a glance at Xia, whose eyes were slightly red. After half a year of interaction and with Qin Feng's conscious guidance, Qin Feng had completely become a member of the Xia clan. In order to recruit Qin Feng, this powerful expert, Xia, Bar, the Patriarch, and the others were even more eager to do so. To the outside world, they even announced that this senior of the Yunqin clan was a powerful expert of the previous generation of the Xia clan who had been wandering outside. They wanted to use this to suppress the other tribes and even the ferocious beasts in the area. At that moment, Qin Feng could still feel a strange, indistinct power connected to his eternal life matrix. It was like the mouth of a spring, continuously providing clear water. This time, he could be considered to have hitched a ride with the Xia clan when he went to the southern Zhang mansion. There were countless Xia clan members under the southern Zhang mansion. To the southern Zhang mansion, the Xia clan before him was just a small part of the vast territory. Qin Feng did not take a fancy to the offerings of the southern Zhang mansion. He just wanted to use this opportunity to familiarize himself with this unfamiliar land. The Xia clan had limited knowledge. The Patriarch walked up and patted the boy's shoulder. "It's better to love a piece of dirt in your home than to love 1,000 taels of gold in a foreign land. Young Empress, I hope you'll be successful in your studies. You'll have to travel 10,000 miles. You must learn to think. Don't act rashly." There was a sentimental look in the Patriarch's eyes. It was rare for the Xia clan to have such a good seedling. "Go back." When he saw the reluctance on the people's faces, Qin Feng shook his head and waved his hand at them. Then, he led Xia on the journey to the southern Zhang mansion. Chapter 1817. The Nanzhang Mansion is an orthodox branch of the Xia clan. They are powerful and rule over countless tribes of various sizes. Other than the Nanzhang Mansion, there are 3 other branches under the Xia clan. They are all near the Zhang River. However, the Nanzhang Xia clan is famous for its fire. The other branches have merged with some foreign clans and have their own specialties. Throughout the ages, our Xia clan has always produced many strong individuals. Every single one of them has become an innate god. In the forest, comparing the Xia clan's ancestral map, which was actually very simple, Xia's proud introduction could be heard from time to time. Carrying a simple revenge made of animal skin, a water gourd on his waist, and a bow and arrow on his back, Xia was in high spirits. The young man was always full of enthusiasm. Even after crossing mountains for a few days, his excitement, anticipation, and enthusiasm could not be extinguished. Qin Feng raised his eyebrows when he heard about the innate gods. Although this land was uncivilized, its cultivation system was indeed quite advanced. "Lord Qin Feng, my father, you are very strong. I'm afraid you are one of the best among the immemorial level experts. I'm afraid you will enter the king level soon. In the future, you will most likely become a famous origami. Speaking of the origami, Zia's eyes lit up. In his knowledge, the origami was the realm that could be seen. As for the innate gods, they belonged to the legends. After ordinary people awakened the clan's power, they would usually become low-level warriors. However, even low-level warriors were divided into beginner, middle, high, and pinnacle. Above the low-tier warrior were the middle-tier warrior, high-tier warrior, ancient tier, immemorial tier, king tier, emperor tier, overlord tier, and origami tier. In the Zia clan, it was rumored that the strongest upper echelon was the ancient existence of the origami realm. As for the innate gods, they were existences after the origami. In the land, they were legendary existences. This division was a little unfamiliar. It was different from the countless surface worlds that Qin Feng had experienced. However, in Qin Feng's opinion, there was no change in the essence. The king level here was almost equivalent to achieving immortality. It corresponded to the lower, middle, and upper gods. The 3 levels of origami corresponded to the 3 levels of Master God, God King, and Supreme God. Innate gods, on the other hand, corresponded to eternity. In this land, some Khanate godfiends preferred to call themselves eternal emperors, such as the Flame Emperor, one of the origins of the Jiang clan. He was the ancient emperor that Qin Feng had encountered in the void. Given Qin Feng's current realm, he could also become an eternal emperor in this land. However, according to what Qin Feng knew, there were a lot of eternal emperors in this land. In addition, Qin Feng was almost certain that as an eternal emperor without an army, he was probably one of the weakest in terms of strength. Qin Feng looked a little dazed. At this moment, his expression changed, and his gaze turned to the depths several hundred meters away from him. He and Zia were now at the periphery of a swamp. The moist swamp was filled with all kinds of dense aerial vegetation. They grew densely in the water, and the water in the swamp had an abnormal reddish-brown color. Poisonous insects and poisonous snakes were the most common in the swamp. Thus, the two of them chose to make way for the sake of traveling. Zia then noticed Qin Feng's strange behavior. Instantly, she was startled. She closed her mouth and softly walked to Qin Feng's side and asked softly, "Lord Qin Feng, what's wrong?" "We ran into some robbers," Qin Feng said calmly. Following Qin Feng's words, swooshing sounds could be heard coming from the swamp. Rustling sounds could be heard from the dense aerial roots in the forest. A vicious gust of wind blew, and terrifying pitch-black spears shot through the air, locking onto the two of them. They were spears smeared with poison. At the same time, dozens of savages with disheveled hair charged out from the edge of the swamp, emitting a savage green light. They charged excitedly at the two of them, as if they had seen prey. "It's the headhunters who have abandoned the glory of their clan." Zia's expression changed slightly, and she looked a little angry. "They're treating us as prey." Qin Feng waved his sleeve, and an invisible force froze the spears in the air. Hearing Zia's words, his expression changed slightly. The headhunters were actually a race that evolved from clans that were attacked by hostile clans or scattered by ferocious beasts. Most of the clans would join other clans after their own clan had fallen. However, there were also some people who accidentally fell into the depths of the primitive jungle. In order to adapt to the environment, they would become extremely savage and aggressive. They would even hunt their own kind to fill their stomachs. These headhunters were relatively scattered at first, and they were not a threat to the other clans. However, after a powerful origami appeared in the headhunters, the situation changed. These headhunters had obtained many strange and bizarre clan abilities through worshipping the powerful origami. In the forest, it would be extremely dangerous to meet the headhunter clan. "They're just some ordinary powerhouses. You do it." Qin Feng waved his sleeve, and the poisonous spears from the tree roots rolled back like a black light, taking away the lives of dozens of headhunters. As soon as he finished speaking, his body flashed, and when he appeared again, He was already at the side, on top of a big tree. He looked at his feet. There was a hint of a smile in his eyes. He could not use his great magic along the way, and it was really boring. Training a little rookie was not a bad thing. However, when he raised his head and looked at the center of the swamp in the distance, there were several rather powerful auras that were faintly discernible, monitoring the movements in this area. Qin Feng's expression was a little strange. The headhunters seemed to be moving a little too much this time. Facing two travelers who were just passing by, it should not be worth the headhunters to use such a big force. There should not be a headhunter's nest nearby. Master Qin Feng, as soon as Qin Feng left, Ziya's expression immediately changed. When he saw dozens of headhunters rushing over like wolves and tigers, he immediately became flustered. One must know that among the dozens of headhunters who rushed over, many of them were low-level warriors, and there were even one or two mid-level warriors at the level of squad leaders. After half a year of being influenced by what he saw and heard, even though he received guidance from Qin Feng, this Yunqin powerhouse, and advanced by leaps and bounds, directly advancing from a low-level warrior to a mid-level warrior, he did not have much actual combat experience. Dozens of attacks came from all directions. Ziya was in a difficult situation, and soon he was outclassed. After taking a few hits, he immediately cried out in pain. Above his head, Qin Feng put down his thoughts and shook his head as he watched this scene. In terms of strength, Ziya wasn't any weaker than these headhunter tribe barbarians. In this half a year, although he hadn't taught Qin Feng any fiend god absolute arts, his foundation was absolutely solid. Those simple martial skills were the result of Qin Feng's countless massacres. They were the foundation of many killing absolute arts. Qin Feng couldn't stand it any longer and said calmly, "Kid, didn't you want to take me as your master? Let me tell you, if you can't even beat these savages, then don't mention the matter of taking me as your master in the future." Chapter 1818. As soon as he finished speaking, Ziya's face instantly flushed red. She roared angrily, gathered her courage, and gritted her teeth as she charged forward. After mastering the Bai Fong divine fire, Ziya began to gain control of the rhythm and entered the best state. As a matter of fact, martial skills were honed between life and death. Any martial skills that had not been honed through life and death were just for show. On the tree, Qin Feng smiled as he saw what was happening. He blew a breath, and a clone appeared out of thin air on another branch. At the same time, his real body disappeared from the tree. He wanted to see what the headhunters were doing and why they were making such a big fuss. In the middle of the swamp, there was a piece of slightly dry black land. At this time, there were already many big holes dug out on the dry land. Hundreds of primitive headhunters wearing animal skins with green liquid smeared on their faces and bone ear studs were waving the shovels in their hands as they dug hard. On the high ground, two high-grade headhunters with strong aura were waving their whips as they shouted, "Dig, dig faster! Don't be lazy! This is your chance! If anyone is lazy and delays the work, the third prince will not forgive him." Who is the third prince? He is the son of the headhunter Aragami. He is the legitimate heir of the Aragami. If you make a contribution, the third prince will reward you with anything. It will be enough for you to enjoy. The blood essence of high-grade vicious beasts, all kinds of beautiful female slaves, and even moving to Godhunter City is not impossible. With the encouragement of a high-grade warrior, the headhunters who were digging became even more enthusiastic as they dug even harder. Whoosh, whoosh. The sound of mud rolling could be heard in the swamp. It seemed to be moving at an unusually fast speed. Qin Feng's figure flew over the dense aerial roots. In the process of flying, his figure instantly turned into a mosquito and quietly approached the center of this swamp. At first glance, it seemed that countless headhunter clans in this area had been summoned. The headhunter clans were everywhere in the swamp that was 700 to 800 miles in radius. Numerous high-grade powerhouses were supervising a group of headhunter clansmen. At the same time, they looked around vigilantly. Qin Feng transformed into an inconspicuous mosquito and stopped above the head of a high-ranking warrior. After a while, he obtained some information from the high-ranking warrior's mind. Qin Feng's figure flashed, and he turned into a gust of wind. He entered the small forest at the side and revealed himself. Qin Feng looked pensive. According to the information he obtained from the high-rank warrior, it seemed that a big shot had come to Godhunter City and was looking for something in this area. At this moment, Qin Feng's expression changed. He looked behind him with a hint of surprise. His figure flashed, and like an invisible ray of light, he quietly merged with the tree trunk. A moment later, a faint and imperceptible green light flashed on the surrounding trees. Without a sound, an invisible brilliance quietly walked out from one of the ancient trees. A young but pretty girl in green clothes walked out from the trees. She looked around vigilantly, and after a while she closed her eyes slightly. Qin Feng could clearly feel a faint invisible power on the tree. It seemed to be communicating with the surrounding trees and plants to detect the changes in the surroundings. The power that this girl had awakened seemed to be of the wood element. She could control the power of plants. Qin Feng's figure was hidden in the depths of the trees. When the energy wave emitted by the girl in green swept over him, it passed through him as if he did not notice it. After a while, a group of headhunter barbarians who were digging in the swamp was discovered by her. "It's here." Instead of being surprised, she was delighted. In the future, one of the 9 spirit pearls that will shine in the next few decades, the wood spirit orb, will be born here. Rumor has it that there is a secret palace of an immemorial expert underground. In the future, the famous god's son of the 9 wilds, Yahoo, gradually became known to everyone after he seized the wood spirit orb from the 3rd prince of the headhunter clan. He even soared through the sky and became one of the most famous origami of the Jiang clan. He became another unparalleled overlord of this land. The girl in green seemed to be recalling something. After a while, she became shrewd and thought to herself, "But now that I have appeared, I'm sorry. The wood spirit orb is destined not to be with Yahoo. However, we still have to plan carefully. After all, the 3rd prince of the headhunter clan has invited many powerful people to seal this place." After that, the desolate god of Jui also said that he escaped the headhunter clan's pursuit after narrowly escaping death. The girl in green's eyes flickered. She did not know that there was another person above her who had a strange expression. Qin Feng looked at the girl in green who was vigilant under the tree with a strange expression. Even though he did not use his divine soul to forcefully explore the girl's memory, he could capture all the thought waves emitted by her. "It seems that I have met someone of the same kind." Touching his chin, Qin Feng's expression was a little awkward. "The 9 wilds god. I didn't expect Yahoo to have such achievements in the end. But what is the 9 spirit orb? It seems to be a key treasure." Thinking to himself, Qin Feng looked at the girl in green under his feet and felt a little strange. He had an impulse to immediately search the girl's soul. But this kind of acting was suppressed by Qin Feng. He felt that if he kept such a person of the same kind, the future journey would not be too monotonous. "But if it's a treasure?" With a strange expression in his eyes, Qin Feng spread out his divine thought. After a while, it swept across the bottom of the swamp. "Nothing." Qin Feng was slightly stunned. But the next moment, he suddenly looked in the direction of Yahoo and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. It really fell into the hands of Yahoo. "It's really," murmuring, Qin Feng's figure flashed and suddenly disappeared. Under the tree, the girl in green frowned and was still calculating. At the same time, on the other side, Yahoo had changed. In order to obtain the acknowledgement of Qin Feng, the teacher in her heart, Ziya had also put her life on the line. After paying the price of being slashed a few times on her chest, she finally managed to kill several tens of headhunter experts who had surrounded and attacked her. When he killed one of the mid-level headhunter warriors, Yahoo had an unexpected gain. He found a dark green orb from the other party's body. This habit of plucking the feathers from the wild goose and looting the corpses was learned from Qin Feng. Every time he killed a wave of enemies, he would not let go of any useful resources. Chapter 1819. Cultivation resources were precious. Any bit of resources could save one's life at a critical moment. Ziya had always remembered Qin Feng's teachings. After the bead was stained with his blood, it directly entered his body. Thus, he obtained some information about the bead. The wood spirit bead, one of the 9 spirit beads nurtured by the continent's origin. On the treetops, Qin Feng's clone saw this scene, and a strange light flickered. He shared the information with his main body. The 9 spirit bead was not just an origin treasure, but also the fuse of several major events in the future, as well as the key to an extremely critical place. From the information he obtained from the girl in green's mind, there were some things in that critical place that were extremely beneficial to his main body. "Do you want to get the wood spirit bead?" While he was thinking, a stream of light flashed, and the clone's expression changed. Immediately, the 2 rays of light merged into one above the treetop. Qin Feng's main body returned. After looking at Ziya under the treetops, Qin Feng's eyes flickered, and he immediately chose to temporarily watch from the sidelines. At the same time, his figure quietly became invisible. After unexpectedly obtaining the wood spirit bead, Ziya suppressed his surprise. At this moment, his expression suddenly changed. "Rumble!" He raised his head and looked into the distance. The high-level powerhouses of the Headhunter clan had already discovered the deaths of dozens of Headhunter clan powerhouses here, and were angrily heading over. 4 or 5 high-level powerhouses came with thunderous fury, and the aura they brought only made Ziya's expression change drastically. "Lord Qin Feng." Subconsciously, he looked up, but in the next moment, he was stunned. Qin Feng's figure had indeed disappeared behind the treetop. In an instant, Ziya panicked a little. At this moment, he heard a slightly mocking laugh. "Kid, when a fledgling leaves the nest, it has to learn to face the wind and rain by itself. Next, you will escape the Headhunter clan's pursuit by yourself." After saying that, Qin Feng transmitted his voice again. "If you can successfully escape, I will grant you an opportunity." Hearing this, Ziya's expression turned bitter. Looking at the 5 Headhunter clan powerhouses rushing over aggressively, he felt his throat dry up. After all, he was only a mid-ranked warrior. The gap between a middle-ranked warrior and a high-ranked warrior was extremely large. "What are you waiting for? Run!" At this moment, Qin Feng's reprimanding voice rang in his ears. The 5 high-grade experts of the Headhunter clan were already 3,000 feet away. Swish! Almost instinctively, Ziya frantically rushed out of the swamp and into the dense forest. His speed was extremely fast, and his body was surrounded by emerald-red flames, like a stream of emerald-red light. "Little bastard, where do you think you're going? Stop!" A moment later, the 5 figures behind him appeared on the battlefield. They looked at the naked Headhunter clan barbarians on the ground with ashen faces. Almost without hesitation, he rushed into the forest. Just as the 5 headhunters rushed into the forest, a green light flashed in the forest, and the green-clothed girl silently appeared at the edge of the battlefield. Looking at the naked Headhunter clan barbarians, the green-clothed girl understood. Before her rebirth, although she was a princess of the clan due to her weak body, her status was quite low, and she had never seen the famous desolate god of the Jui wilderness. However, according to the rumors, the desolate god of the Jui wilderness had a bad habit of stealing corpses. The green-clothed girl looked at the direction where Ziya and the others fled, and she was somewhat troubled. Although she had heard that the wood spirit orb was obtained from this nameless swamp in her previous life, she did not know the specific details, nor did she know the time and place. The green-clothed girl did not see that Ziya had already obtained the wood spirit orb. Looking at the many headhunter clan barbarians who were wantonly searching the swamp, the green-clothed girl fell into a difficult choice. Should she follow Ziya, or continue to wait and watch this group of headhunter clan barbarians, and wait for them to find the wood spirit orb? On the tree, Qin Feng looked at this scene with interest. He seemed to see a shadow of himself in the girl. Diligent scheming, just to seize the opportunity of others. He had failed, but also succeeded. However, in terms of decisiveness and scheming, this girl obviously could not compare to him, who had thousands of years of memory. Soon, the green-clothed girl made a decision. She decided to follow Ziya. She thought that no matter what, the wood spirit orb would eventually fall into Ziya's hands. Anyway, as long as she followed Ziya, she would eventually be able to find the whereabouts of the wood spirit orb. Seeing this scene, Qin Feng smiled slightly. His figure leaped, turned into a gust of wind, and followed closely behind. Rumble! After half an hour, accompanied by a loud noise, a big hole appeared in the middle of the forest. A big black hole appeared in the middle of the forest. Being chased and beaten by the 5 headhunter clan experts, she even suffered many fatal injuries. However, the strange thing was that Ziya always recovered her battle strength at the first moment, and the more she fought, the stronger she became. The wood spirit orb contained an extremely strong life force. This kind of treasure was similar to the Xuanwu divine pellet that Qin Feng had obtained in the beginning. In terms of nourishment for the host's life force, it was even better. This was also the reason why Qin Feng and the 5 headhunter clan experts chased after Ziya. After Ziya, who knew how many light injuries she suffered, just like the fate of the green-clothed girl, Ziya accidentally triggered a mechanism in the forest that was on the verge of destruction, falling into the mechanism. What's going on? Why is there a big hole here? Looking at the bottomless hole filled with decaying aura, the 5 headhunter clan experts exchanged glances with each other. Their expressions were filled with doubt. One shouldn't enter the forest. For such an ancient hole that suddenly appeared, if one entered rashly, they might not be able to obtain any benefits. 2 of us will enter. 2 of you stay behind. The remaining 1 will immediately report to the 3rd prince. I suspect that this might be the secret cavern that the 3rd prince has been searching for. One of the high-level headhunter race powerhouses calmly gave the order. The other 4 did not have any objections. Soon after, 2 figures rushed into the hole that suddenly appeared. Of the other 3, 2 stayed behind while the last one rushed out of the forest to report to the 3rd prince's camp. Yuchong Clan Secret Cavern. At this moment, on top of an ancient tree, the green-clothed girl's eyes trembled as she looked at the hole that suddenly appeared. Her beautiful eyes were overjoyed. Yuchong clan was one of the clans of the Ji clan. The Ji clan was similar to the Jiang clan. They were both large clans. The origin of the Ji clan was another eternal ancient emperor that was not weaker than the Flame Emperor. According to the information that the green-clothed girl grasped, this hole that suddenly appeared was most likely the Yuchong clan secret cavern that the desolate god of Jiuyi entered during his first fortuitous encounter. Chapter 1820. In the distant past, the Ji clan and the Jiang clan had once fought over a vast and fertile territory, resulting in countless casualties and the annihilation of countless tribes. Yu Chongsher was an expert of the Yu Chongsher clan who fell in the midst of attacking the Jiang clan. Before his death, he exhausted the last of his energy to find a hidden underground palace and buried his corpse and belongings within. In order to make it easier for his clansmen to find his corpse in the future and bring it back to the clan for burial, he hastily left behind a map before his death. However, this map was not taken away. Along with the death of the majority of the experts of the Yu Chongsher clan, it fell into a corner of the battlefield and was buried by the sandstorm until it was accidentally discovered by the third prince of the Headhunter clan. According to what the green-robed girl knew, there were several treasures in this Yu Chongsher secret palace. Other than a spiritual tree nurtured by his corpse god, there was also a secret technique created by this Yu Chongsher secret palace that was of great value. This was also the thing that moved the green-robed girl the most. It was rumored that this nine-wild desolate god, Yahoo, created the world-shaking nine-wild imperial spirit technique, based on the embryonic form of this secret technique. The green-robed girl glanced at the two experts of the Headhunter clan blocking the entrance of the cave. Her eyes flickered. The green-robed girl really wanted to be the aureole behind the mantis stalking the cicada. However, she was certain that if Yahoo digested all the treasures in the secret palace, she would have broken through to the realm of a high-grade warrior by the time she came out. She has already benefited from it. The mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the aureole behind, is completely meaningless. Chi. The green-robed girl's eyes flickered with a trace of coldness. After a moment, she covered her face with a green veil and formed a seal with her hands. A sharp green light flickered from the palms of the green-robed girl. Dozens of thick and strange vines grew out from the ground at the edge of the cave. Not good. Someone is ambushing us. The two high-grade warriors of the Headhunter clan reacted quickly, but the green-robed girl was even faster. Her hand seals trembled, and dozens of thick green vines wrapped tightly around the two high-grade warriors in the blink of an eye. No! A series of shrill and terrifying screams rang out. In an instant, the green vines wrapped around him, accompanied by terrifying pleas. Bright red flowers with golden spots bloomed on the green vines. The green-clothed girl floated down from the treetops. As she withdrew her 10-finger seals, the green vines instantly retracted back into the ground. Only two ghastly white skeletons were left on the ground. As soon as they fell to the ground, they shattered into pieces. Atop an ancient tree, Qin Feng's eyes flickered with a smile when he saw this. This green-clothed girl was also a high-ranking warrior, but the combat skills she displayed were far superior to those of the same rank. She could easily take someone's life. His control over the spiritual wood could be said to be very precise. In terms of tariffs, it far exceeded Zia's. As expected of a reincarnator, Qin Feng secretly praised. Casually killing the two powerhouses of the Headhunter clan, the green-clothed girl was like crushing two ants. She was about to jump under the moon, but then a thoughtful look flashed through her beautiful eyes. Looking behind her, a sly look flashed in her eyes. With a wave of her green sleeve, hundreds of pitch-black seeds were waved out of her big sleeve and disappeared into the surroundings of the cave in an instant. A trap. On the tree, Qin Feng raised his eyebrows. This green-clothed girl was more two-faced than he had imagined. Those seeds were the seeds of some demon plants and contained a strong poison. Once someone entered the area and sensed the aura of living creatures, they would immediately take root and sprout, turning a radius of hundreds of feet into a poisonous thorny forest. If someone did not pay attention, they would inevitably suffer a great loss. After sprinkling the seeds, the green-clothed girl glanced at them, and a satisfied look flashed in her beautiful eyes. Her figure instantly jumped into the cave, but Qin Feng's divine consciousness sensed that many seeds were sprinkled wherever she passed. These seeds had their own mysteries, turning the whole harmless cave into a fatal trap in an instant. Qin Feng looked at this scene indifferently. The traps around the crypt were quickly put to use. After receiving news of the high-ranking experts of the Headhunter clan, the rumored third prince of the Headhunter clan quickly came aggressively with his guards and followers. "Ah, be careful! What is this thing? It's a trap!" With the arrival of the third prince, cries and wails instantly resounded through most of the forest. The seeds of the highly poisonous demon plants buried underground were activated. The pitch-black thorny vines sensed the aura of living creatures and grew wildly. In the blink of an eye, they entangled a portion of the headhunter clan experts, who were the first to rush over. Wails, screams, and angry roars resounded throughout the morning. Almost in an instant, dozens of people were poisoned by the highly poisonous demon plants and turned into thick water. Some were also poisoned, and their skin was corroded as they screamed in pain. But in the blink of an eye, a terrifying saber light that looked like a tornado appeared in the middle of the encirclement. Wherever it passed, countless poisonous plants, including the poisoned high-ranking headhunter warriors, were suddenly torn into pieces. Under the escort of two strangely dressed old men, a young man with a luxurious face and martial attire walked out of the storm angrily. The one who made the move was a silent and cold middle-aged man with a scar on his face and a single blade in his hand. On the right was an old man with a red-horned snake coiled around his hand. The old man wore a head ornament made of white bones. He had yellow vertical pupils and a long robe that dragged on the ground. There was a stagnant chill around him, and he looked very frightening. These two guards exuded the great majesty of the immemorial stage. The aura of the third prince far exceeded that of the green-clothed girl. After Ziya, he was an ancient stage expert. It was surprising that such a young ancient stage expert was so young. At this time, the third prince's face was as gloomy as water. He looked around and saw that dozens of mid-ranking warriors had been killed in an instant. Even many of the high-grade warriors had suffered great losses. Damn it! If this prince finds out who did it, I will make him beg for death. He roared hatefully. The group soon found the bones of the two high-ranking warriors next to the cave entrance, and their faces became more and more unsightly. But looking at the cave close at hand, the third prince quickly abandoned his anger, and a trace of passion was difficult to hide. Wood Spirit Orb. This time I must get the Wood Spirit Orb. The third prince's eyes were burning with greed. Although the surname power he awakened was not of the wood attribute, if he obtained the Wood Spirit Orb, it would be like adding wings to a tiger. It would be of great benefit to him when he broke through the immemorial stage, king stage, and even emperor stage in the future. All of you, stand guard outside. A group of headhunter powerhouses immediately spread out and stood guard outside the forest. You two follow me into the secret palace. He pointed to the two guards next to him. Immediately, the three of them entered the cave, but soon angry roars came from the cave. Chapter 1821. It was clear that the headhunter trio had suffered a great loss after jumping down. On the treetop, Qin Feng looked down at the ground. The secret palace of a primordial expert naturally couldn't pique Qin Feng's interest. He simply sat down cross-legged and waited for Ziya to appear. Qin Feng was rather interested in the 9-spirit pearl. The secrets it contained were very likely to be of great benefit to him. He needed to make a good plan. Qin Feng didn't know this. Although many experts were scattered in different directions in the ancient void cave, there were still some who coincidentally entered the same place as him. The inner world was very vast, and the chances of entering the same place when entering were quite small. But the world was just so mysterious. On the shores of the Ji River, there was also a large clan, the Ji clan. The Ji clan was one of the most ancient clans and had nurtured many powerful clans. Yu Qi Ji Ting Ji Ren Sun Ji Bai Bai and Yi. Each clan was abnormally powerful. The Sun clan on the shores of the Wei River was one of them. Although the Sun clan was a branch, it wasn't weak back then. Among the 12 clans that separated from the Ji clan, its strength was around the middle, and there were many experts in the clan. It was divided into a dozen branches scattered across the plains in front of the Wei River, inhabiting the banks of the various tributaries. In one of the tributaries, a beautiful woman dressed in colorful clothes stood on a cliff, looking at the vast and boundless Wei River. The mighty flood river roared from upstream, passing through a huge waterfall that was more than 10 meters long and sloping down. Thanks to the passage of this waterfall, countless plants grew in this area. Plants were usually at the bottom of the food chain. Above them were all kinds of poisonous insects, and above them were all kinds of small vicious beasts. Many large vicious beasts fed on small vicious beasts. This was a very complete food chain. The Sun clan's branch was in the lower reaches of the food chain. They were both predators and prey for the many vicious beasts in this area of several thousand kilometers. Early in the morning, golden mist diffused from the waterfall, bringing with it a hazy feeling like an immortal realm. The ancient trees seemed to have turned a faint gold. Roar. In the forest, the hungry, ferocious beasts began to circle around the wooden village, but most of them were blocked by the surrounding traps and even the city walls. The powerful existences worshipped in the ancestral hall of the clan. Those clan experts emitted an aura unique to the strong. Although it was only a little bit of aura, it made the fierce beasts not dare to recklessly approach. Seeking luck and avoiding calamity, the law of the jungle, these were the iron rules of this vast land. The stronger the existence, the bigger the territory. In the eyes of the beasts, this was a matter of course. At the very least, the ferocious beasts would not enter the stronghold that was filled with the aura of a powerhouse before challenging him. Of course, there were always unlucky clans that encountered extremely powerful ferocious beasts on the ground. Amidst the attacks of the ferocious beasts, the people of the clans became the prey of other ferocious beasts. At this moment, several figures leaped out of the woods and landed on the edge of the rock. Rumble! The nearby waterfall roared like a thunderclap. There were several experts from the clans with extremely powerful auras. They were dressed in barbaric clothes, but they had a noble and primitive aura. They knelt down on one knee. Lord Sun-ji, the envoys of the upper clans have arrived. Saint Lord Colored Glaze's beautiful eyes swept across the Sun experts who knelt down on one knee. Just like Qin Feng, after Saint Master Colored Glaze descended, she also chose to integrate into one of the tribes. She entered the tribe with the identity of an expert from the tribe. After a few tricks, the name of the Sun concubine of the Sun clan quickly spread to the surrounding main Sun clan. Saint Lord Colored Glaze's expression did not change as she looked at the torrential waterfall in front of her. Entering the Sun clan was only the first step. The next step was to enter the upper echelons of the Ji clan. She had to obtain the worship of the Ji clan. The Ji clan was one of the most ancient clans. As long as she could obtain the worship of the 14 high-grade clans, she would be much stronger than the Colored Glaze heavenly region. His eyes flashed with an indescribable light. Gantian, Pangu, destruction, Man Huang, Saint Lord Colored Glaze murmured in her heart as she chewed on these words. Her eyes were cold. Saint Lord Colored Glaze would never forget the tragic experience of the Colored Glaze heavenly region. Millions of years of operation, a portion of the confidants who lived with her day and night were all destroyed by the combined forces of the 4 super-domain lords. The 4 of you, just you wait. You would never have thought that there would be an inner world that is bigger than the surface world in the ancient void cave. When my cultivation is strong enough, I will return everything you have given me 100 times, 1,000 times. Saint Lord Colored Glaze's heart was cold. She looked up, but there was a trace of inexplicable gloominess in her beautiful eyes. If she had not lost the Colored Glaze heavenly region and reached the 3rd level of the eternal realm, she would not have had to advance step by step. She could have gone up directly and defeated the Ji clan god to replace him as the emperor of this clan. According to her understanding, this inner world was very strange. It had an extremely strong suction force. Any experts of the surface world who fell into the inner world could not get out. Unless they obtained the title of emperor, became the clan god, and obtained the karmic rank of heaven and earth, they could counteract the suction force and leave the inner world. No matter what, she had to obtain the position of emperor of a gathering area. Turning around, Saint Lord Colored Glaze's beautiful eyes swept across the few experts of the Sun clan who were kneeling on one knee. She turned into a seven-colored stream of light and flew into the depths of the forest, rushing towards the residence of the Sun clan. Seeing this, the few experts of the Sun clan dared to stand up. Looking at the direction where Saint Lord Colored Glaze left, they glanced at each other and rushed to catch up. In the swamp, there was an intense battle in the underground secret palace. Using the terrain and the secret technique of Yu Chong clan, the 9 godly arts, Ziya became the final winner. Whether it was the third prince of the Headhunter clan, his 2 guards, or the green-robed young lady, they were all fooled by the complicated terrain and mechanisms in the underground palace. After confirming that the pursuers could not catch up in a short period of time, Ziya used the back door of the secret palace to leave the swamp and the forest. Hong long long. As the stone door on the mountain wall opened, Ziya flashed out from behind the mountain wall. He clapped his hands and looked behind him proudly. Do you think you can catch me just because you have an immemorial level expert? Dream on. He snorted. At this moment, the aura on his body had strengthened by a lot. He had reached the realm of a high-level warrior. What was special was that there was no fluctuation in his foundation. But in the next moment, his expression changed. He raised his head and saw a familiar figure outside the cave. Chapter 1822. Lord Qin Feng. Ziya was startled, his face filled with disbelief. What, kid, you seem to be very surprised. Qin Feng turned around, looking at Ziya with a faint smile. Kid, your vision is still a bit too low. With a curl of his lips, Qin Feng sneered. Ziya's heart shook, but soon after, a hint of joy appeared on his face. Ever since Qin Feng helped him comprehend the power of surname, as well as his half a year of guidance, he had already treated Qin Feng as the person he trusted the most. Even though Qin Feng's background was mysterious, he believed that Qin Feng would definitely not harm him. Lord, this time I obtained quite a few good things. Look, on the slope, Ziya took out some treasures he obtained from the cave. An ancient sword, a beast-skin secret scroll, 2 purple-black spiritual fruits, and wood spiritual bead were also taken out. He looked at Qin Feng as if he was an eager young man waiting for praise and affirmation. In the Ziya tribe, the young man had already proven himself, obtaining the affirmation of his tribe members, even his father, Yabale, and the patriarch. But for the young man Ziya, what he hoped for the most was to obtain the acknowledgement of this Yunqin expert who was both his teacher and father. However, this Yunqin expert's vision was not ordinary. Qin Feng's gaze first landed on the ancient sword, shaking his head indifferently. A broken sword. Ziya's expression froze, then he smiled bitterly. This ancient sword was not a broken sword, but one of the famous ancient swords of the Chong clan, absolute ground sword. It was extremely sharp, and it had an extremely powerful defensive ability. Such a rare weapon, even among the countless tribes under the Ziya clan, could be counted with one's fingers. Purple caltrop fruit, able to nourish the soul, this is not bad, but it has too many impurities. His gaze landed on the 2 purple-black fruits. Qin Feng shook his head again. His gaze landed on Ziya's body, making Ziya feel a bit awkward. Since you only ate one, you can use your natal spiritual fire to purify it for a short period of time. Kid, you are smart. Ziya's forehead was covered in sweat. In fact, he had originally planned to swallow all 3 purple caltrop fruits in one go. The purple caltrop fruit had the miraculous effect of nourishing the soul. If it weren't for the Lord in front of him, he probably would have refined it all in one go. Keep this in a box made of spiritual wood. Before you break through to the ancient rank, don't refine the remaining 2 or it will affect your foundation. Hearing this, Ziya nodded her head like a chick pecking at rice. At this moment, the pride in his heart from obtaining a treasure had completely dissipated. At the same time, Qin Feng used his divine power to create a jade box out of thin air. He took it out of his sleeve and threw it to Ziya. Zia hurriedly caught the jade box and put away the 2 purple caltrip fruits. Qin Feng's gaze fell on the secret scroll. He casually picked it up and scanned it with his divine sense. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. 9 godly arts, 9 tasks at the same time. This is a pretty good secret art, but it's not perfect yet. Don't practice it rashly. Otherwise, you'll easily lose your mind and die. You'll need some medicinal herbs to practice it. You can try it. Once you've mastered this art, you'll no longer have a problem challenging those of a higher rank. Nodding slightly, Qin Feng casually put down the secret scroll. Hearing Qin Feng's evaluation, Zia was overjoyed and happily put away the secret scroll. Memorize it quickly and burn it, Qin Feng instructed. Yes. Zia's expression turned serious. Qin Feng's gaze finally fell on the wood spirit orb. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. He could feel the preciousness of this spiritual orb. Refining a spiritual treasure nurtured by this continent was equivalent to gaining the worship of countless tribes. It was comparable to the worship of the lord of a divine territory. Zia really trusted him after that, and she actually took out this treasure. He looked at Zia. This spiritual orb is very precious. It will be of great help to your future cultivation. Don't take it out in the future. Don't tell anyone. Even those closest to you. With a wave of his hand, the wood spirit orb turned into a stream of light and entered Zia's body. Seeing Qin Feng's solemn expression for the first time, Zia's expression shook. Then, he nodded fiercely. Of course, he knew the principle of not showing off one's wealth. He just didn't expect this orb to be so important. What made him feel the most was that this Yunqin lord didn't have the slightest bit of greed. Especially that invisible protective heart. It made Zia's heart surge with warmth. Qin Feng saw the young man's expression and shook his head slightly. A single wood spirit bead was of no use to him. Besides, he hoped to gather the other 8 spiritual orbs with the help of Zia. Let's go. We'll continue forward. Seeing Zia put away the treasure, Qin Feng gestured slightly. He immediately took the lead and continued forward. At this time, they were still tens of thousands of miles away from the southern Zhang mansion. Along the way, they were mostly primitive mountain ridges. They might pass by the territories of more than 10 tribes. At this time, the harsh winter was about to arrive. In the harsh winter of the primitive mountain range, it was exceptionally cold. The cold wind whistled and white snow fell from the sky, gradually covering the forest. If an ordinary person were to walk on the snow, it would be very easy for them to lose their life due to hypothermia. Fortunately, Zia had become a high-ranking warrior and had mastered the power of fire. He could walk for a long time in the snow, but his speed was still slowed down. After a few days, a thick layer of snow had accumulated on the road. The thick snow reached his waist, and every step he took was exceptionally difficult. Under a rock halfway up the mountain, the two had already set up a shelter in the evening. At this time, the trees with wide leaves had withered. Qin Feng didn't use his divine power. He simply found some dry branches from the surroundings. Crackle! This simple shelter wasn't gorgeous, but it was definitely warm. The fire seemed to disperse all the cold. On the branches there was a stone pot that was simply made of stone. It was boiling. In the snow, one couldn't drink ice and snow directly. In the deep mountains and forests, doing so would lower one's body temperature. The more one ate, the colder it would get. In the evening, Zia caught a few small beasts, skinned them, and roasted them on a wooden rack. Although there was no seasoning, the fresh smell of meat was already shining. Sitting cross-legged on the side, Zia was already drooling. On the side, Qin Feng closed his eyes. His divine consciousness seemed to be one with the surrounding snow and ice. An invisible change was happening to his body. After such a long journey, he felt a kind of cleansing in the depths of his soul. Along the way, from the spirit sea world to the eldritch world, and then to the mutated giant world, His state of mind was tense almost every moment. This kind of relaxation was extremely rare. It seemed that his state of mind had become empty. In this state, it was as if his divine soul had become pure, and countless profound mysteries were being analyzed by him as if they were water flowing through a canal. Chapter 1823. In this pure state of mind, especially in the control of the eternal true thunder, Qin Feng felt that he had advanced by leaps and bounds, and a lot of inspiration came to his mind. He had comprehended many mysteries of the fourth level of the eternal secret technique and was rapidly approaching the peak of the fifth level of the eternal secret technique. But this feeling only lasted for a few moments, and soon it faded away. Crackle! Crackle! The sound of burning resin resounded in his ears. Qin Feng opened his eyes silently. Zia, who was on the side, saw this scene and was slightly stunned. Qin Feng had given her the feeling of a supreme expert before, but now she felt that he was a bit like an ordinary person. At this moment, Qin Feng did not run the secret method or take the initiative to restrain his momentum. Uncle Qin, congratulations, your cultivation has gone further. Zia, who was on the side, immediately reacted and said excitedly, "What is your current cultivation level?" Qin Feng glanced at Zia, who was sitting over with her hips swaying, and shook his head slightly. "You will know in the future." With a faint smile, Qin Feng felt the changes in the depths of his divine soul. His eyes flashed with a faint brilliance. Perhaps he should take advantage of this time to relax in Nanjiang Mansion. Maintaining this relaxed state of mind was extremely beneficial for him. If he was just an ordinary expert of the Eternal Realm who had just entered the second realm of the Eternal Realm, now he was approaching the title of Lord of Heaven. Only a small number of supreme experts in the second realm of the Eternal Realm had this privilege. This kind of progress was exhilarating. Qin Feng was even more excited than getting the karmic rank of heaven and earth and the change of the eternal fate. In the dark night it was still snowing heavily. Fortunately, the shelter above his head was strong enough. However, he could not relax at night. Otherwise, if the fierce beasts approached him in such a remote place, he would not have a good time. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Zia sat cross-legged and began to practice breathing. In such a cold environment, the fire qi in the body would be tempered to the greatest extent. Replacing sleep with practice was very uncomfortable in the early stage, but it was very good for exercising one's will. Under Qin Feng's supervision, Zia had gradually adapted to this habit. Qin Feng faintly looked at a forest not far away with a trace of a strange smile in his eyes. In a dense forest, somewhere 1 meter underground, strange green vines wrapped around the ground, forming a tightly wrapped bird's nest in the snow. The green-clothed girl sat cross-legged in the nest. The tree vines could keep one warm. Dozens of tree vines were rooted in the ground, providing enough space so that one wouldn't feel stuffy. Most importantly, it was hidden in the snow, and was not in harmony with the vicious beasts in the mountains. After being tricked in the Yuchong clan's secret palace, not only was the third prince of the Hunter clan unwilling to let the matter rest, the green-robed young lady was also secretly tailing the two behind Zia. There were a few times when the green-clothed girl wanted to kill her and steal her treasures, but she hesitated. Queen Zia's strength was not bad, especially when there was an expert beside her who looked like an expert. The green-clothed girl was confident that she could take down Queen Zia, but not Qin Feng. Especially on the way, the girl in green saw several times that Zia was trying to curry favor with Qin Feng. She was completely respectful to the bones. This made the green-clothed girl think of a legendary existence. According to Desolate God of Jiuyi, Zia had revealed a few times in public, he had a teacher. The teacher of Desolate God of Jiuyi was extremely mysterious. Before her rebirth, although the green-clothed girl was a princess of a tribe, her cultivation was ordinary, and she didn't know the core secrets. She only heard that the mysterious teacher of desolate god of Jiu Yi was extremely terrifying. Even in the Jiang clan, his position was very prominent, comparable to the strongest ancient emperors. This made the green-clothed girl fearful. The green-clothed girl cherished her life very much, especially after her rebirth. She knew many secrets. Rather than that, she might as well let the third prince of the Hunter clan do it. In the green-clothed girl's mind, the third prince would die soon anyway. Sha sha. At this moment, the green-clothed girl's expression changed. At this moment, the tree vines had turned into a snowball buried in the ground, completely covering her traces. Outside the forest, a snow-white giant wolf silently appeared in the forest. The giant wolf's eyes were green, with a hint of coldness. Beside the giant wolf, the Hunter clan experts wearing simple animal skins and bone ear studs appeared. As soon as these experts appeared, the green-clothed girl's heart trembled. The aura of more than 10 high-ranking warriors and 2 ancient rank experts, concealed like heavenly snakes, abnormally terrifying. Silently, more than 100 giant wolves walked in the snow. They had black and white fur on their feet, and there was no sign of life when they leaped. Feeling these giant wolves approaching, the green-clothed girl felt a chill in her heart. In the snow, if a high-ranking expert was targeted by these giant wolves, they would probably die without a burial place. A hungry tiger was afraid of a pack of wolves. If her aura was exposed, she would probably die. This time, the continuous heavy snow for several days helped the girl in green clothes. The snow that was up to 2 meters thick perfectly covered the existence of the underground green rattan nest. Although the giant wolves had a keen sense of smell, they couldn't find the green-clothed girl 1 or 2 meters under the snow and wrapped in green vines. After Ziya, Qin Feng and Li Yundong built their shelter at the bottom of the hill. This way they could block the cold wind. The hill blocked their vision, and with the howling cold wind at night, Ziya didn't notice that more than 100 Hunter clan experts were already hundreds of meters away. However, they couldn't hide from Qin Feng's spiritual perception. On the soft and warm dry branch, Qin Feng suddenly opened his eyes. The fire next to him was still burning slowly, and the fragrance of the branches filled the air. Ziya sat cross-legged on the other side. Under the light of the fire, he sat cross-legged. As he breathed in and out, a fiery red light appeared between his brows. "It seems that I still have to do it." Qin Feng shook his head. His eyes moved as he looked at the endless snowflakes in the sky. He blew a breath, and at a speed visible to the naked eye, it expanded on the hill in front of the shelter in an instant, turning into a huge, furry, terrifying beast. The figure was dozens of stories tall. It was like a pair of arms that could push away the clouds and pluck the moon. It looked like a giant ape with snow-colored hair. This was an ancient beast that appeared in extremely cold places, the snow demon. In the forest, the green-clothed girl witnessed this tragedy with her own eyes. The headhunter experts who had sworn to ambush the two behind Ziya had unexpectedly encountered a terrifying snow succubus that had passed by. All of them had been reduced to snacks under the snow succubus's gaping maw. Today, a WeChat public account was opened. Interested readers can directly search the public account Imperfect Heaven and Earth to follow. There are a lot of published data about this book by the author, as well as all kinds of short stories. Readers might be able to see themselves in some of the published information. Chapter 1824. That snow demon was a wisp of ice essence that had been transformed by Qin Feng's breath. It was not an illusion, but a real primordial ferocious beast. After eating more than 100 giant wolves and a group of headhunter elites in one go, it was already half full. It let out a burp, and the girl in green could clearly feel that the giant snow demon was looking at the place where she was hiding. A trace of disdain flashed across those ferocious eyes. It had discovered me. The girl in green's expression changed greatly. But to her relief, although the snow demon had discovered her hiding place, it had probably already run away. With a whistle, it turned into a cold wind and disappeared into the forest. But looking in the direction that the snow demon had left, the girl in green felt as if her whole body was soaked in cold sweat. Primordial ferocious beasts were extremely ferocious. If she was caught, she would not be able to escape death, even if she had various secret techniques of the Gomon clan. On this cold night, the girl in green once again experienced the ruthlessness of this vast and boundless forest. The girl in green was in a daze. She would remember this day for a long time. She had almost become a snack in the mouth of the snow demon. At the foot of the mountain, Qin Feng saw the frightened girl in green. He smiled and closed his eyes again. Beside him, Ziya's breathing was even. A ball of fiery red light was faintly visible on his forehead. But he did not notice any movement hundreds of meters away from the mountain. It was as if this night was the same as any other night. Qin Feng glanced at him and was somewhat dissatisfied. His vigilance was still lacking. He wondered if he should find a chance to teach Ziya a lesson. The next morning, beside the fire, Ziya exhaled a long breath. Vaguely, the breath that he exhaled carried traces of incomparably hot flames. Wherever it passed, a large puddle of ice and snow was melted. Ziya looked at this scene. He was first startled, but then there was a hint of joy in his eyes. He had become a little stronger again. For a youth who had lived in a clan since young, becoming stronger was almost engraved in the depths of his soul. Like the ferocious beasts in the mountains, becoming stronger was almost an instinct. Only by becoming stronger could he ensure that he would not be eaten by stronger existences and protect his home. The cold wind was biting cold. Looking at Qin Feng, who seemed to be sleeping soundly, Ziya got up and walked toward the outside of the shelter. He had set up some traps in the surrounding mountains last night. Hopefully, he would be able to gain something from those traps. At the very least, he wouldn't be hungry in the morning. If he had a few small ferocious beasts, he would have enough for breakfast. After Ziya left, Qin Feng flipped over and jumped up from the soft tree branch. He looked in the direction where Ziya left and smiled. In the sanctuaries, Ziya woke up from her sleep. In a cave not too far away, the third prince of the headhunters, Lai Dong, looked ferocious. As soon as he woke up, he received bad news. Early in the morning, when the two guards realized that the Snow Wolf clan had not returned all night, they went to investigate. Unfortunately, they discovered that the Snow Wolf clan had been completely annihilated. The forest was covered with the bones of many snow wolves. They were the bones that had been abandoned after being devoured by extremely ferocious and terrifying beasts. In the snow, the bones were piled up and there were faint traces of blood. The two Archean guards came to a conclusion. The Snow Wolf clan was unlucky. Before they could do anything to the two people, they had encountered a terrifying Archean beast. This news made Lai Dong fly into a rage. He could only curse Ziya. Qin Feng and Ziya were too lucky. He clamored that he would do it himself and send two Archean guards to kill the two people. However, the two Archean experts had a different opinion. The two suspected that Ziya, who had taken the wood spirit orb, might have an extraordinary identity and might have someone backing her. Throughout the morning, the cave was filled with arguments. In the sanctuaries, Ziya, who had gone out to check the traps in the morning, quickly returned. The traps gave him a lot of surprises. A huge thorny dolphin with a sharp mouth was carried on his shoulders. But Ziya did not come back alone. A girl in green came with him. "Uncle Qin, this is Luo Chang, an elite from the Luo clan of the Jiang clan. What a coincidence. She is also going to Nanjong Mansion to participate in the Spirit Flame Academy trial. Just nice, we can travel together." With a thump, the thorny dolphin that weighed several hundred kilograms fell to the ground. Ziya introduced the pretty girl in green with great enthusiasm. To be able to meet such a beautiful girl on such a boring journey, and she was also an elite from another tribe who was going to Nanjong Mansion with him, made him very excited. Of course, it was also because his teenage hormones were starting to swell. In short, Zia's mood was very complicated along the way. She was happy, surprised. 666. Qin Feng glanced at the excited Zia. This fool didn't know that he had personally brought a little fox with evil intentions into his home. Greetings, Senior Qin Feng. I heard from Big Brother Ziya that Senior Qin Feng is very powerful and is one of the top elites in Nanjiang Mansion. Seeing you today, you are indeed worthy of respect. Luo Chang was very good with words. Her smile was like a flower, and her voice was soft. Her words made people feel comfortable. If it was an ordinary person, their heart might have floated after hearing her words. In the morning, after experiencing yesterday's thrilling experience, Luo Chang finally made up her mind. She wanted to mingle with Ziya, the future desolate god of the Jui wilderness. This way, it would be convenient for her to snatch some opportunities from him in the future. At the very least, she could capture him and make him her subject. Qin Feng glanced at Ziya, who was scratching her head and giggling foolishly. He secretly shook his head. In terms of scheming, the slightly immature Ziya was not Luo Chang's opponent at all. Little girl, your words are quite nice. You really know how to talk. Qin Feng's expression was indifferent. However, since we are going to Nanjiang Mansion, let's go together. Luo Chang had been quietly sizing up Qin Feng. She was comparing Qin Feng with the people in her memory, trying to connect the voice and appearance of some elites with him. However, the girl in green did not find any information about elites who looked similar to Qin Feng. Who is this person? Is he a nobody? The girl in green thought to herself. However, she immediately shook her head. Given Ziya's respect for Qin Feng, he could not be a nobody. In the memories of the future desolate god of the Jui wilderness, this elite should be of very important existence. Could it be the ancient emperor? The girl in green was shocked when she thought of the legend. Despite the drastic changes in her heart, the girl in green still had a smile on her face. Suddenly, she felt a chill run down her spine. She hurriedly raised her head and saw the elite that Ziya called Uncle Qin looking at her with a strange gaze. Chapter 1825. The dark eyes seemed to see through her internal organs, past and present life, and even all the thoughts in her heart were suddenly exposed in front of him. This kind of gaze made the girl in green feel shocked and embarrassed at the same time. For a moment, the girl in green almost thought that the secret of being reborn was completely exposed in front of this pair of eyes. But fortunately, the owner of the pair of eyes instantly looked away. Just this one glance caused the girl in green to be in a trance for the entire morning. Ziya didn't understand what was going on. She just felt that the girl in green seemed to have suddenly become strange. But the girl in green was very tenacious and quickly recovered. But she was indeed a bit more afraid of Qin Feng and almost instinctively avoided him. In the morning, the three started their journey again. It was not easy to walk in the wind and snow. The winter snow was very thick and soft. They had the strength of serene, so they walked slowly. But the surrounding mountains were covered in white snow and were prone to avalanches. Especially in the snow, there were some powerful ferocious beasts that often appeared. Qin Feng took the lead, followed by Ziya. The green-clothed girl, Luo Chang, walked side by side. The green-clothed girl walked briskly, but in her heart she was thinking about other things. In my memory, the divine son of the Jui wilderness, Yahoo, seemed to have several major events that affected his life. The pursuit of the headhunter tribe was only one of them. Next should be the rebellion of the Chun Yu tribe. The Chun Yu tribe of the Jiang clan is an unremarkable tribe among the small tribes. But no one would have thought that the Chun Yu tribe actually hid a huge opportunity. An extremely powerful existence once appeared in this tribe. He was a very famous expert in the upper echelon of the Jiang clan. If you obtain the token of this tribe, you can directly enter the heavenly sacred hall and obtain the favor of an expert of the heavenly sacred hall. As everyone knew, the Ziya tribe was one of the tribes under the control of the Zhongshui Divine Palace. In addition to the Ziya tribe, there were also the Gauteng tribe, the Yongmen tribe, and dozens of other tribes under the control of the Zhongshui Divine Palace. As one of the 12 divine palaces of the Jiang clan, the territory under the Zhongshui Divine Palace was undoubtedly huge. The Tianxing Hall was one of the 4 halls of the Zhongshui Divine Palace. The Nanzhong Manor looked huge, but it was only a small corner of the Tianxing Palace. Usually, after the disciples of the Spiritual Flame Academy finished their apprenticeship, they would enter various places in the southern Zhang Prefecture. They would either become mountain guards or ambassadors of the southern Zhang Prefecture. They would either become the representatives of the southern Zhang Prefecture or become a grassroots expert who ruled over countless tribes. All in all, this was a pretty good outcome. This was the dream of countless youths from the tribes who came to the Nanzhong Prefecture. They were above countless tribes and had countless experts fawning on them. Once they entered Nanzhong Manor, they would no longer have to worry about being harassed by ferocious beasts. However, in the eyes of the green-clothed girl, becoming a middle-level official was just so. However, if one could enter the middle level of a hall, that would be incredible. That was because the experts among the hall masters could be said to be very important. Every expert who had entered the hall level could shake mountains and rivers with a single word. Their casual words would cause countless experts to analyze, guess, and even think of ways to curry favor with them. The Gomong clan, where the green-clothed girl came from, had been able to prosper because experts who held positions above the hall level were born in the tribe every once in a while. If one could enter the heavenly sacred palace after finishing their apprenticeship and become an expert, such an opportunity was definitely a dream come true. Especially for someone like Ziya who had no backing to speak of. As the princess of the Gomong clan, even the green-clothed girl herself might not have the opportunity to enter the hall level after finishing her apprenticeship. Unless one could defeat the strongest geniuses of the Gomong clan, one might be able to gain the favor of the ancestors of the Gomong clan and enter the hall level in advance. This would really save them a few hundred years of hard work. Should I take this opportunity to seize this opportunity? The green-clothed girl was eager to try. The keepsake of a hall's expert was a huge temptation even for her. Uncle Chin, come and see. A few days later, on an early afternoon behind the forest, a cry of surprise sounded from behind the forest. 2 figures flashed past like phantoms. They instantly appeared in the depths of the forest. A green light appeared, and the green-clothed girl looked at the trap in front of her, a strange glint in her beautiful eyes. In the snow, a deep pit with a radius of several meters appeared. It was a large pit that Ziya had dug last night, and was specially used to hunt prey. Inside the pit, there were many strange herbs of various colors that were specially used to paralyze the prey. At this moment, a girl in linen clothes was lying in the pit, her body stained with blood. She was lying on her side, and her appearance could not be seen clearly. At this moment, the girl in linen clothes had already fainted. On the side there were some footprints that contained blood. Clearly, the girl in linen clothes was injured, and then fell into the trap set by Ziya. Ziya stood at the side of the pit, looking a little helpless. He had used a trap to trap someone. At the side, the green-clothed girl looked a little pensive as she looked at the girl in linen clothes in the pit. This was probably the beginning of another fortuitous encounter for Ziya. Uncle Chin. Ziya looked at Qin Feng as if asking for help. Qin Feng was a little speechless. After a moment, he saw Ziya's helpless look, and he could not help but shout. "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and carry her out." Oh! Ziya woke up from a dream and quickly jumped into the trap. Carrying the girl in the trap, he jumped into the snow at the side. Ziya's face was a little red. The girl's figure was excellent, and her breasts were extremely plump. The young boy and girl's skin rubbed against each other, making Zia's heart beat faster. Putting the girl in linen clothes down, Zia felt her pulse and was stunned. He looked up at Qin Feng. "Uncle, she's almost out of breath." "Of course, she's almost out of breath. She was already seriously injured, and after falling into your trap and being frozen for a night, it's already a miracle that she could hold on until now." Qin Feng glanced at Zia with an indifferent expression. "Uncle, what should we do now?" Zia was anxious. Looking at the girl in linen clothes on the ground, he could not hide his annoyance. The girl in linen clothes looked to be about 14 or 15 years old, and was extremely beautiful. Even the green-clothed girl, Luo Chang, felt a wave of jealousy. Although she was not inferior to the girl in linen clothes in terms of looks, her chest was flat. Compared to the girl in linen clothes' bulging chest, she could not hide her displeasure. Seeing Zia's unconcealable concern, she could not help but ask, "What else can we do? Bury her?" Hearing this, Zia's expression changed greatly. "There's no need to bury her." Qin Feng stepped forward and glanced at the girl in linen clothes. "She can still be saved. Carry her back." Chapter 1826. Camp beside the bonfire. Zia then gently placed the linen-clothed girl on the soft and slightly fragrant cedar branch and looked at Qin Feng. The green-clothed girl, Luo Chang, appeared in the camp and looked at Qin Feng. The girl in linen clothes, in her opinion, even the strongest experts of the Gomang clan wouldn't be able to save him. The girl was already heavily injured and had fallen into a trap. After being frozen for an entire night, she was on her last breath. "What are you standing there for? Didn't you notice the enemy?" Qin Feng glanced at Zia and Luo Chang, who were standing beside him. "Enemy?" Both of their expressions changed. Immediately, he tilted his head to listen carefully. Instantly, his gaze looked outside the forest. Half a mile away, he could clearly hear a strange sound. A figure appeared in the vast snow. "Is it the bull tribe?" The green-clothed girl glanced at Zia. When Zia obtained this opportunity from the Chunyu tribe, the tribe had already been destroyed by the bull tribe. The bull tribe had destroyed the Chunyu tribe and annexed their territory. The Chunyu tribe was only left with the daughter of the current chief, Chunyu Xianxian. Almost instinctively, a trace of depression flashed in the green-clothed girl's eyes. She didn't want to fight the bull tribe for the sake of Zia before she got any benefits. Could it be the headhunter tribe again? Zia didn't think of the bull tribe. She thought that the third prince of the headhunter tribe, Lai Yen, had caught up again. Her face turned cold. "No matter who they are, don't let them disturb me." Qin Feng glanced at him and immediately chased the two of them out. The two of them walked towards the pursuing Gong Niu. Although she didn't want to, in order to maintain Ziya's impression of her, the green-clothed girl followed with a straight face. Qin Feng looked at the two leaving figures, especially at the green-clothed girl. After a while, he looked at the linen-clothed girl on the ground. He raised a hand and extended a finger. White light appeared on the tip of his finger and an invisible force was emitted. A white brilliance flew out and enveloped the linen-clothed girl who was on her last breath. Chi. Visible to the naked eye, the coldness in the girl's body was expelled, and her injuries were healed under the white brilliance. The girl's pale face turned ruddy. Qin Feng didn't immediately wake up the linen-clothed girl. He looked out of the forest. The Bull clan had sent quite a number of people. It was a small search team with about a dozen people. Behind Zia, the green-clothed girl stood outside the forest. Just because of a few words, a fight broke out. This search team was obviously no match for the two high-level warriors behind Ziya and the girl in green. They were beaten to a pulp. The group of more than a dozen people were beaten black and blue and fled. Qin Feng's eyes flickered as he watched this scene from afar. From Qin Feng's perspective, it was naturally better to silence them. Once this search team ran away, it was very likely that they would attract more enemies. However, after Zia, the two girls in green had their own thoughts. Zia was too young and hadn't seen much of the world. He didn't want to kill without a word. The green-clothed girl had ulterior motives. She couldn't wait to lure all the experts of the Bull clan here, and take the opportunity to get rid of the linen-clothed girl. At the same time, she could take a certain token from the linen-clothed girl for herself. After driving away the search team from the Bull clan, Zia and the girl in green returned. Uncle Qin. Zia saw Qin Feng standing by the fire and couldn't help but step forward. Then his eyes fell on the linen-clothed girl on the ground. He looked at Qin Feng questioningly. Camp by the fire. Qin Feng said indifferently. She has been saved. She should wake up soon. Hearing this, the green-clothed girl's beautiful eyes trembled slightly. She looked at the linen-clothed girl on the ground. After awakening the wood spirit, the green-clothed girl's perception of life was exceptionally clear. She could clearly sense that the linen-clothed girl, who was like a candle in the wind and whose fire of life could be extinguished at any time, had completely recovered from her injuries. For a moment she looked at Qin Feng in inexplicable shock. This mysterious expert's methods were really terrifying. A person who had suffered such terrible injuries had actually recovered in such a short period of time. At this moment, Zia saw that Qin Feng was dismantling the temporary camp. After seeing Zia, he looked at him in confusion. Qin Feng looked indifferent. Let's go. Carry her. Don't wait for the Bull clan's troops to catch up and take revenge. After saying that, Qin Feng glanced at the green-clothed girl. The green-clothed girl noticed this glance. Her expression was calm, but she felt a little strange. She felt that everything she did couldn't be hidden from this mysterious expert. After a moment of silence, the green-clothed girl said with a serious expression, Brother Zia, Uncle Qin is right. We let the Bull clan's people go because of our carelessness. They definitely won't let us go. This area is the Bull clan's territory. We have to leave the Bull clan's territory as soon as possible. In front of us is the Lu clan's territory. The Lu clan is a large clan. I don't think the Bull clan would dare to run into the Lu clan's territory to kill us. Hearing this, Zia nodded. To get to Nanjong Prefecture, they had to pass through the territories of many clans. These clans were big and small, but the Lu clan was definitely one of the few large clans. It was enough to rank in the top 5. However, Zia still felt a little regretful. There were still 300 to 400 li to the Lu clan. These 300 to 400 li were vast plains, but now it had become a snowfield. It was probably impossible to avoid the Bull clan in such a place. A moment of mercy had left him with such a big problem. Zia's expression was a little gloomy. He didn't regret not killing the Bull clan's expert. He just felt that he should have knocked out the search party. At least that would have bought them some time. Let's go. At this time, Qin Feng had already dismantled the entire camp. Under the green-clothed girl's gloomy expression, Zia went up and carried the linen-clothed girl on his back. In the snow, the few of them quickly rushed towards the Lu clan's territory. At this time, in a huge stronghold, a young expert with pitch-black bull horns on his head looked coldly in the direction of the snowfield. In front of him, a dozen Bull clan experts with swollen faces knelt on the ground with teary faces. Under the terrifying aura of this young expert, they trembled. On the side, there were a few cloaked existences with domineering auras. Their expressions were solemn. On a huge throne with sky-piercing bull horns, the young king said calmly, No matter what, we can't let Chunyu Xianxian go. The token of the Chunyu clan might be on her. Don't hurt her. She is this king's destined queen. Bring her back alive. Chapter 1827. Although the Bull clan was one of the clans under the Jiang clan, they had always been neither strong nor weak. They weren't particularly outstanding either. However, since a few decades ago, as the previous generation of Bull clan experts obtained great opportunities, the entire Bull clan began to exert their strength and gradually merged with the surrounding clans. Chunyu clan's rejection of the Bull clan's marriage proposal was suicidal. Moreover, the Bull clan was determined to obtain Chunyu clan's legendary token. The Bull clan experts present all understood that this young clan leader, who was trusted by the Bull clan, only cared about Chunyu Xianxian's token. He didn't really care about this princess consort. If Chunyu Xianxian really ends up in the hands of others, you must act according to circumstances. Speaking of acting according to circumstances, the young man on the throne revealed a gloomy expression. Yes, clan leader. In front of the village, several experts stood up. The aura of immemorial rank experts filled the hall. Then, several experts walked out of the hall and began to mobilize the troop. In the hall, the young man pondered for a moment, then walked out of the hall and arrived at the shrine behind the Bull clan's mountain. In the shrine of the Bull clan, there were 3 or 4 enormous stone statues enshrined side by side in the center. In ordinary clans, there was the saying of enshrining ancestors, but the statues of the deceased ancestors weren't enshrined in the center, but in the side hall of the shrine. Only the first expert of the clan who obtained the clan's title would be enshrined in the center and revered by the countless descendants of the clan. At this moment, in the shrine of the Bull clan, there were 3 other experts enshrined in the center besides the first-generation Bull clan. The statues of these 3 experts exuded a peculiar aura. It was obvious that they were different from the Jiang clan. They seemed to have a foreign style. They either had scales, horns, or feathers. There were all kinds of strange powers in the clan, but in the Jiang clan, awakened clan powers rarely caused the experts to mutate, such as growing scales, feathers, horns, tails, claws, and so on. Not only the Jiang clan, but even among the Ji clan and other clans, there were very few people who possessed the awakening power of the mutated clan. However, the neighboring clans of the Jiang clan were rich in such mutated clan experts. He took 3 incense sticks from the side and inserted them into the small cauldron on the table. In an instant, an invisible aura appeared above one of the statues. The statue seemed to have a divine charm, and the young man clearly felt a gaze fall on him. A surge of pressure surged over, and the young man felt as if the air in the void seemed to have frozen. However, the young man's expression remained the same. "My lord, didn't I tell you not to summon us for no reason?" A slightly hoarse and cold voice came from the statue, with a hint of anger. The owner of the divine statue was somewhat annoyed. His identity was special, and if the powerful warriors of the Jiang clan were to discover his whereabouts, the situation would not be good. Even in the face of the statue's wrath, the young man's expression remained cold. "Sir, the matter of the Chun Yu tribe has become complicated. I'm afraid I need you to mobilize the spies in the Lu tribe to help me." Complicating matters? The atmosphere in the ancestral hall became tense, and the owner of the statue changed his expression. Many spies were needed to infiltrate the Jiang clan, and the token of the Chun Yu tribe was a key thing. If the war god of the Qi clan wanted to swallow the Jiang clan and replace it, he needed many spies to control the situation. At the same time, this was also a key step to nibble away at the Jiang clan. The owner of the statue thought highly of the aptitude of the young man in front of him. If he could get the token of the Chun Yu tribe, it was completely possible for him to enter the Heaven Divine Palace in a few years. He could even enter the Zhongshui Divine Palace. If he could enter the Zhongshui Divine Palace, the importance of this spy was self-evident. There were also many clans in the Qi clan. The owner of the statue needed some merits as a way to get out so that it would be convenient for him to divide the spoils in the future. "Well, I already know about this matter. You just need to continue to hunt him down. If he enters the territory of the Lu tribe, I have my own methods." As the welcome ended, the owner of the statue paused for a moment. "However, there is a difference between me catching Chunyu Xianxian and you catching her yourself. You have to take care of yourself." After that, a light flashed, and the ancestral hall became silent. The young man stood where he was and slowly raised his head, with some coldness between his eyebrows. "There is a difference," he murmured. "It seems that I have to do it myself." After pondering for a while, he simply went out of the ancestral hall, and personally led his ancestors to go straight along the snowfield, in the direction of the Lu tribe. In the Nanjong mansion, in a magnificent mansion, above a secret chamber, a middle-aged man in a golden robe opened his eyes, with a trace of gloominess flashing in his eyes. "What a waste! I have to do it myself even for such a small matter. That Nyo dares to call himself the most powerful patriarch of the Gong Nyo tribe." With his hands behind his back, he paced back and forth in the secret chamber, his face flashed with anger. Recently, the entire Fire Emperor Palace had been tracking something. Some of the spies of the Qi clan had been exposed and attracted the attention of the Fire Emperor Palace. At this time, if he acted rashly, he was afraid that there would be a lot of risks. If the Fire Emperor Palace found some clues, it would be difficult to escape. The middle-aged man looked a little hesitant. Should he take the risk? But this hesitation only turned around in his mind, and the middle-aged man made up his mind. With a flash in his hand, a white color appeared. It was a conch. Homophonic conch. This was a very popular object among the experts. This kind of conch had a magical effect. It could use sound as a medium to transmit words and images. There were quite a few of these kinds of communication artifacts. Now, many experts of the big clans were racking their brains to study the principle of this strange object. It was said that many objects that could monitor this kind of strange object had been born one after another. But the middle-aged man also had some research on this kind of conch. He could use some special methods, such as secret codes, to avoid this kind of conventional monitoring. On the snowfield, a group of people was speeding up in the direction of the Lu tribe. Chunyu Xianxian had already woken up halfway. However, she didn't know whether it was Qin Feng's intention or not, but she didn't have any strength in her body, and could only be carried by Ziya. On the snowfield, the cold wind was blowing, not knowing whether it was because of the cold or because of shyness. Chunyu Xianxian lay on Ziya's shoulder. Her white and delicate facial features were a little blushed. The girl in green beside her had a frosty face. In front of them, one was higher than the other. Qin Feng felt the subtle difference between the three young men and women, and there was a strange look in his eyes. Chapter 1828. The group traveled at an extremely fast speed. They were only 100 miles away from the Lu clan's Sunjieji city. Sunjieji city was a large gathering area surrounded by natural barriers. The Lu clan was most famous for their spells. It was said that their ancestors had obtained an extremely mysterious and natural spell. This spell was extremely powerful. There was even a period of time when the Lu clan became the master of the Zhongshui Heavenly Palace. However, the glory of the clan could not last forever. Over the long years, the Lu clan gradually declined as the most powerful experts of the Lu clan fell. Even the extremely passed-down, secret techniques of the Lu clan became incomplete. The Gong clan was rising rapidly, especially with their secret techniques of body refinement. They were unparalleled. However, they did not dare to provoke the old and powerful Lu clan. Speed up. After passing through this long and narrow valley, we should be able to reach the territory of Sunjieji city. Qin Feng shouted from the front. Passing through the empty snowy night, there was an extremely deep valley between the Gong clan and the Lu clan. The cliffs on both sides of the valley were straight and bare. There was no place to lean on. In Qin Feng's ears, he could already hear the whistling of the wind. Their pursuers were very close. Judging from the sound, there were probably hundreds of them. After Ziya, the girl in green was not weak either. Her expression became extremely serious. The valley in front of them was very long. There was still 100 miles to go. There was no way they could avoid it. However, after Ziya, the girl in green followed Qin Feng's secret order and passed through quickly. Qin Feng's figure lagged behind slightly. At the entrance of the valley, he glanced behind him. Within the vast expanse of white snow, he could see a group of several hundred people rapidly flying towards the entrance of the valley. Their speed was extremely fast. Seeing this, Qin Feng narrowed his eyes. Seeing that no one was paying attention, he waved his sleeves and turned around to catch up with Ziya, the girl in green, and the other two. At the same time, in front of the valley, he waved his sleeves slightly and a gentle breeze came from the other side of the valley. Rumble! In the blink of an eye, a terrifying tornado was formed, roaring through the entrance of the valley, heading straight for the Bull clan and the other experts who were still in hot pursuit. A few moments later, the hundreds of pursuers from the Gong clan were swept up into the sky, whistling as they sped off in an unknown direction. Hearing the commotion behind them, Ziya, the green-clothed girl, and the linen-clothed girl turned around and stared at the terrifying tornado with their mouths agape. How could there be a tornado in this snowfield? At the same time, tens of miles away from the Bull clan, the current leader of the Bull clan, Nyoemo, pulled on the reins of his horse and stared at the tornado. Under the terrifying snow tornado, the dozens of Gong Nyo clan experts were swept away in the blink of an eye. Not only that, but what caused Nyomo's expression to change greatly was that as the snow tornado whistled, it swept towards him. Almost instinctively, Nyoemo pulled up the startled Snow Wolf King under him and ran back madly. The snow tornado was so fast that Nyoemo couldn't escape at all. In an instant, with a terrifying whistling sound, the two of them, along with the wolf and several of their subordinates, were involuntarily swept into the terrifying tornado. They were blown up into the sky by the tornado. In the blink of an eye, they were gone. It was certain that the Bull clan would never be able to catch up. Being swept up by the tornado, no matter how strong they would definitely be half dead if they fell from the sky. Ziya, the green-clothed girl, and the linen-clothed girl watched this scene from 100 miles away in a daze. It was like a dream. With a flash of light, like a breeze, Qin Feng appeared beside the three of them. "Uncle Qin, did you do this?" Ziya looked at Qin Feng, an inexplicable heat bursting from her eyes. "It wasn't me." Qin Feng smiled and shook his head slightly. "Our luck is here. Even the tornado is helping us. Let's go." With a smile, Qin Feng took the lead and walked towards the other end of the canyon. "Good luck?" Ziya shook her head. How could there be such a coincidence? Just as they entered the canyon, a tornado came from the other side of the canyon, and coincidentally swept the Bull clan into the sky. "It's at least a king stage expert." The green-clothed girl and the linen-clothed girl's hearts shook violently. Only king stage experts of the Archean realm and above could affect the weather to this extent. What kind of existence was a king stage expert? Usually, only a few large tribes like the Lu clan had a king stage expert overseeing them. This was almost like a sea-stabilizing needle on the earth. Usually, the rise of a king stage expert was bound to be followed by the rise of a large clan. In the Nanzhong prefecture, king stage experts were also important and had extremely high status. In Jiesher City, beside the Lu clan's city, on a cliff that was hundreds of feet high, many stone residences were opened out of thin air. An expert whose aura was like a gale suddenly opened his eyes. His body flashed like an invisible whirlwind, and in an instant, he appeared on the peak of the cliff that was only big enough for one person to stand on. His gray robe fluttered, and his grayish-white hair was draped behind his gray robe. He had a strange expression on his face. The mountain rocks here were extremely strange, as if they had been blown by the gale of the canyon. They were as thin as leaves, and sharp peaks were stacked on top of each other. They were rooted in the ground, and there were hundreds of them, forming a strange landscape. Many experts of the Lu clan who cultivated the secret techniques of the wind element liked to live on the peak of such stacked peaks, and dug out their cave residences on the peak. Cultivating in such a place was different from comprehending the power of the wind, and comprehending the unique power of the wind spirit. This expert looked into the distance and felt the strange fluctuations of the power of the wind. The huge tornado at the end of the canyon seemed to have appeared in his eyes. A naturally formed tornado? This expert furrowed his brows and looked into the distance. After advancing into the king stage of the wind element, he could see the changes of the world around him. According to his perception, it should be impossible for a tornado of such scale to form around him. This did not conform to the natural rules of the fluctuation of the power of the wind. Perhaps my understanding of the profound mystery of the wind is not clear enough. King stage experts were usually able to come into contact with the profound mystery of the changes of the world. Each element usually had 6 to 9 types of profound mysteries. Usually, if one could comprehend all 6 or 9 types of profound mysteries of a certain element and obtain a divine personality bestowed by the world, one could advance into the origami level. Inside the cave, another black gust of wind flew out. A middle-aged man in a black robe with a slightly sinister and cold expression appeared beside the expert. "Second brother, what's wrong?" He was in a black robe, and his long hair was fluttering in the wind. His eyes were looking at the canyon in the distance, and a strange look flashed across. He then looked at the expert beside him. "That's all for today. Everyone, rest early." Chapter 1829. Third Brother. L.V. Linfong glanced at the black-robed man. Ever since the Liu family's secret method became incomplete, there were 12 secret methods in its heyday. Now there were only 3 left. Among the 3 secret techniques, the wind element was the most comprehensive, so it gave birth to the most expert. The 3 brothers who held power in the LV clan were almost all kings of the wind element. Although the 3 brothers were all kings, there was a difference in their strength. The most powerful one was the second brother, L.V. Linfong, followed by the eldest brother, L.V. Lin, who was the clan leader of the Feng clan. Glancing at his third brother, L.V. Linfong shook his head slightly. "Nothing, maybe it's just my imagination. Let's go back. Eldest brother's 50th birthday is coming soon. Third brother, you should prepare a gift." As he spoke, he glanced at L.V. Wu. A gray whirlwind flashed, and he disappeared in the blink of an eye. On the spot, L.V. Wu looked at L.V. Linfong, who left. His expression was gloomy, and there was a strange glint in his eyes. Could it be that he has sensed something? L.V. Wu was a little uneasy. Not long ago, he received a message from Nanjing Prefecture, so he sent people to the canyon to intercept the experts of the Chunyu clan. But soon, L.V. Wu calmed down. The relationship between the Chunyu clan and the LV clan was ordinary. Even if his eldest brother knew that he had sent people to capture the little princess of the Chunyu clan, what could he do? Could he blame him, a king-level expert, for such a trivial matter? The status of a king-level expert in a clan was different from those ordinary high-level warriors. As long as he did not usurp the position of the clan leader, L.V. Lin would not do anything to him. Moreover, I am thinking for the LV clan. If that clan defeats the Jiang clan one day, perhaps the LV clan will be able to take charge of a prefecture and become the leader of a prefecture. L.V. Wu muttered, and the cold light in his eyes became more intense. He looked into the distance. The white snow covered the world. As a king-level expert, if he wanted to advance quickly and comprehend all the mysteries of a certain element, the fastest way was to get more experts to worship him. And to break through to the origami realm, he would need the clan divinity to complete the breakthrough. Clan godhood could only be bestowed by the heavens, and only when the clan was strong enough would they be able to offer sacrifices to the heavens. Moreover, Lu Wu heard from you that Chunyu Xianxian seems to have an extremely important item on her. If he could get his hands on this item, the reward would not just be some rare items from the emissary. No matter what, I must get the Chunyu family. His eyes flickered and he moved. His black robe instantly turned into a boundless black wind. It swept him up and disappeared from the top of the mountain, heading towards the canyon. At this moment, Qin Feng and his group had already encountered the team sent by Lu Wu to capture them. Furthermore, he had been successfully captured and brought to the Lu clan, where he was locked up in the Wind Dungeons. Madame Lu's Wind Prison was at the bottom of the mountain. After years of erosion by the wind, the bottom of the mountain was eroded by the wind. It was hollowed out by the experts of the Lu family, forming many spacious prison cells. The 4 of them were treated similarly. Their limbs were tightly bound by metal chains with secret words engraved on them. They were all chained to the rock wall at the bottom of the mountain. Qin Feng had not been chained up like this many times. Since his rebirth, it had only happened once. That was when he was caught by Madame of Bones on the White Bone Plain and hung at the bottom of the cave. However, Madame of Bones, who had tried to teach him a lesson, did not manage to do so. Instead, she was completely naked and taken advantage of by him. Uncle Qin, what should we do? These metal chains have secret words engraved on them. They have the power to suppress the power of the ancestors. I can't use the power in my body at all. In another prison cell, Ziya's 4 limbs were suspended in the air. He had a bitter smile on his face. They did not resist because of Qin Feng. If not for their trust in Qin Feng, they would not have suffered so much even if they died in battle. Brother Ziya, don't complain. The Lu clan has sent a large group of 4 to 5 Archean experts. We can't escape. Don't they want the token of the Chunyu family? When the time comes, I'll just hand it over to them. I believe they won't harm our lives. In another prison cell, Chunyu Xianxian was also suspended in the air. Her voice sounded weak. She had just recovered from her injuries and was not completely healed. The girl bit her lip with a trace of self-blame. On the other side, Luo Shang was also suspended in the air. When she heard this, her beautiful eyes were filled with ridicule. Stupid woman, what do you know? Have you ever heard of not killing after seizing treasures? If that's the case, we might as well fight to the death with them and drag them down with us before we die. Ziya's face was filled with frustration. The girl in green did not speak. Her beautiful eyes looked at Qin Feng, who had been expressionless all this time. She seemed to be thinking about something. She always felt that Qin Feng was extremely mysterious. With the strength that Qin Feng had shown, he was not afraid of the Lu clan at all. Why would he surrender? Even if he could not win, he could still run away. Qin Feng said that the appearance of the tornado was a coincidence, but she did not believe it at all. Of course, it was not a coincidence. Qin Feng was willing to surrender not only because he did not want to expose his strength, but also because he was taking advantage of the situation.